So I've been working on the other thing I've been working on is the Bible rewritten book. It's not me rewriting the Bible. It's me explaining what happens in the Bible that people don't know, which is really good because, especially now with that disclosure thing kind of happening in the states, it's. I mean, I think all we'll get is UFOs. We won't get the oh, here's the Anunnaki, here's what a grey looks like. I think we'll get what we have in the past, more and more images of flying craft. I don't think we're going to get anything more than that. But at least it's making people now think, hang on a minute, there may be aliens out there, in which case my books, my videos and documentaries, etc., should be good for them to learn from. So the Bible rewritten hopefully will be out in the end of the month. I'm still working on it, which is a shame. I'd love to have got it out sooner, but it's just, yeah, it takes time. So we're back down to 5. So am I right or am I right? So remember when we used to do these a couple of months back, we used to get 15. Now it's 5. So anyone that's new here, the reason why we've only got it's now down to 4. People get booted out by TikTok. The reason why is because I'm good at what I do and TikTok doesn't like it, so they reduced me from the 15 limit that they've done down to what looks like 5. It's gone up to 10 now, but it will get booted. People will be booted out, and it will down to 9. So unfortunately, that's the way it is. I have been researching on other things as well, so don't think I haven't been researching. I've been researching a hell of a lot. So, for example, the Dogon tribe is beautiful. I what I love is having knowledge can totally destroy people's things. So basically, the Dogon tribe supposedly said, and I won't go into the whole long details, but supposedly said that the gods that they knew of, the fish gods, half man, half fish, came from the sea, but also came from the star system Sirius B, where there's a star and a dead dwarf star with it, which you can't see with the naked eye. So, in other words, how did they get that information if it's if you can't see it? In other words, a god would have told them, but of course, a god, e.g., even an Anunnaki, wouldn't have named it Sirius B. So they would have had to have explained to the explorers where this constellation is, this tribe, which actually got the information from about 1,000 years before they spoke to the. Now, bearing in mind the stars move in that 1,000 years, so even if they pointed up at where they believed it was, it wouldn't have worked. Now, the beautiful part is where I say about the knowledge. So where they say there was a star and a dead dwarf star, or a heavy object made of metal, that's what they supposedly said. Now, you do know that Venus was called the morning star. It's a planet, but it was called star. So back then, 1,000+ years ago, people were calling planets stars. Now, when Nibiru comes round and lights up, because it's 4 to 10 times the size of Earth, that would have been looked at as altogether now, a star. So it makes sense. Now, back in the 80s, I heard, I've been doing this for nearly 50 years. Back in the 80s, I heard that the planet that came into our solar system had a dead dwarf star stuck in its orbit. Now, thank you, whoever's doing the hearts. Now, wait for it. Most solar systems are a binary star system, meaning 2 suns. We only have 1. Now, is it possible that the Dogon tribe looked up and saw Nibiru, saw the dead dwarf star, and said that's where the Anunnaki, or where their gods come from, because that's exactly where they would have come from? Yes, totally possible. Now, let's go to the fish, half man, half fish. Now, there's a thing called and I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Kalapsu, which were the magi, which were there was probably more than 7, but there were 7 magi over a long period of time, and those magi were basically demigods from Enki. So Adam was one of them, and they would come from the ocean, teach people during the day, and then go back somehow across the ocean, and that's why they were classed as half man, half fish, because they could go into the ocean and disappear. Which, guess what? That's exactly what the Dogon tribe said. So, in other words, the Dogon tribe were visited by something similar to the Magi, or possibly the Magi. As I say, there's many, about 7, at least we know of 7 of them that came and taught. So it's totally possible that, a couple of thousand years ago, the tribe that moved from where they were to where they are now were taught basic things by one of these Anunnaki demigods. And I say demigods because it's offspring of an Anunnaki and a human woman. So that, in other words, long story short, the Dogon tribe was actually referring to the Anunnaki. There's no way that they could have been talking about absolutely anything else. Everything seems to line up. So that's just one little thing that I've been making sure that I had all the evidence and knowledge for. I've done loads more research since I last done this chat, one of these live chats. So I'm just going to scroll down now, see if there's any message. Shanesters wrote, my favourite. Hi, Shanester. Nice of you to join. Hope you're having a great day, whatever it is that you've been doing today. Nicole's joined. Well, welcome, Nicole, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Hopefully it's enjoyable, but not too enjoyable. Samantha's right. I sent you a video on your backup account. You'll like debunking it, though. Shame was almost right. Thank you, Nicole, for the whatever it is that you'll give me. You don't have to. Thank you, Samantha. Yeah, I don't really look at that. So it's on another phone, the backup account. When I do go through it, I will go through and go through everything. So there's other people that sent me things as well. So at the moment, because I'm really trying to get this Bible done so I can have that off my head, because it's been something that I've been working on for a long time. And I should have it maybe. Hi, Kerry's joined as well. Hi, Kerry. Thank you, Gary Smith, as well. And thank you, Kerry. You don't have to. At least we've broke the 5 mark. We're on 21 at the moment. So yeah, once I finish the Bible rewritten, which I'd love to finish it tomorrow, then I send it to Amazon. Then they have to send me a proof copy. Then I have to reread it all again. Hey, that's the worst part. That is the worst part, especially when you think you've done it all. You get the approval copy back. You read it and you find something wrong, and you're like, no, because you've got to go through that whole process again. You've got to change it, send it to them, wait for the preview copies, read it again, and it kills. But yeah, so I will look at that. Thank you, Samantha. I know there are, because I was always worried that people didn't like me debunking people, because it's like someone just today on Instagram said your ego or something, blah blah blah, on one of my debunking videos. But there are people that enjoy it, because I actually learn something as well from other people making up crap where I explain what it is. So yes, I will get to it, Samantha. Thank you very much for sending it to me. Nicole's wrote, hello, add to history and all. Hello, Nicole. Hope you're on a great day. Scrolling down. Shane says, right, at work all day inspecting titanium jet engine parts that we make. Well, let's be honest, Shane, you're not, are you? You're playing solitaire and pretending, and ticking a couple of boxes on a piece of paper. So yeah, that's about right. I'll sort that one out. I know your type. Or is it just me that would bother doing that? You're actually probably working. But either way, interesting job. I don't know whether that's classed as a boring job or an interesting job. I don't mean to sound rude. It's just I don't know whether that's something you do every day, and after a while it gets boring. But I suppose most jobs do anyway. I certainly wouldn't want to inspect titanium jet engine unless you take that titanium and make it into a sort of Captain America shield, in which case that'd be so cool. I know it's not titanium. I know it's unobtainium, but it's close enough. Kerry's wrote, "Hi everyone. Hi Kerry. Nice of you to join. Hope you're having a great day as well." Samantha's wrote, "No worries. I understand. Thank you. Yeah, I will. I will look at them and go through them all. Just hopefully I can get that thingy finished tomorrow. The Bible rewritten. It's fascinating really because I go through a lot. I go through the burning bush. I go through because believe it or not, I go through the parting of the sea. Believe it or not, if you actually read the Bible, you can clearly tell that there was a craft behind the group of people. There was a messenger, or as you know him as an angel. In the Bible, it was behind the group of people that was about to cross the sea, a craft. So it's quite easy for me to read. I don't know, that's not supposed to be big-headed. I'm just saying, when I read it, to me, unless I'm completely wrong, a lot of it, and I'm putting evidence in, which I shouldn't really do, but I am. I can't help it. I sneak some evidence in it. So this book, Bible Rewritten, isn't supposed to be evidence-based because I've done other videos on and books and stuff with the evidence. This was supposed to be just like the Bible. The idea was that, the Bible doesn't have evidence, and so I will just explain everything as it is, paragraph after paragraph from the Bible and then my version. But I can't help it. I slip in the odd bit of evidence here and there. I'm naughty. Tucker's wrote, "Did all the Anunnaki believe in an afterlife, including those on Nibiru?" So they were aware of spirits before they even came here. So the answer would be yes, they were aware of an afterlife. From my research, I don't believe they had the ability to communicate with the afterlife until after the Great Flood, when you start getting the Book of the Dead, which one of my new live chats with Julie, oh, you'll like this. So I do these AI chats while I'm driving, and I normally catch Julie out, and whether that's Grok, ChatGPT, or whatever. So someone asked me to do a chat on, thank you whoever's doing the hearts. You don't have to, it won't affect the amount of people. We're limited, so you don't really have to do the hearts, but I appreciate it. Thank you. So yeah, I did this chat with Julie AI in the car, and I'm talking about the Book of the Dead, and I says it's very, very similar to the Anunnaki, and the AI said that's a bit of a stretch. And of course, me being me with my ego, I said, right, by the end of this chat, you will be agreeing and saying, oh crap, yes, you're right. Wow. So anyway, we carry on chatting, and I start pointing out things that, like the 7 gates of Ereshkigal for the underworld, which is hell. I point out the fact that, Gilgamesh had to go, and they took his body over there to be judged, and if he was good, he'd get a statue. And I start putting all the things out which match, the Book of the Dead with the whale and the feather, whether you're judged, etc. And at the end of it, I said, "Oh, do you remember when I said that you will actually admit?" Because it was, as it was going along, it was going, "Oh yes, that's interesting. Yes, that's very similar. Yes, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right." And so at the end of the chat, I said, "Do you remember I said you would say that I'm right? Are you going to say that?" And he went, "Yes, you're right." I said, "There you go. Say no more." So yes, they did believe in an afterlife. They had spirits. They mentioned the word spirits, and their burial process was a fairly shallow grave with bricks on top. And this was for normal Anunnaki. Obviously, the royalty got their own, like for example, the royal tomb of Ur, which is really fascinating. They catalogued everything. Wait for it. They catalogued everything in the royal tomb of Ur, and I'm on about they dug up the graves, they dug up the tombs and everything. Yeah, wait for it, you're gonna love this. So they catalogued everything. They catalogued the width of the tomb, they catalogued the width of the graves, that who was there, what, except when it comes to the royalty, they didn't tell you who was buried, and they didn't tell you the length of the tomb or coffin or burial site. They didn't tell you the length. They told you the width. And you know why they didn't tell you the length? Because it's going to be longer than a human. So yeah, this is. I mean, when you look at how mainstream work, it just you can read them like a book. And again, when you talk to AI, I know you guys have done that. When you talk to AI about Anunnaki, it will say myth. And that is so biased because, as you've probably heard me say to it, don't ever call it a myth. Because, for example, Troy, the city of Troy, was a myth until we found it. So now it's not a myth. So, but it says myth. And every time you ever read anything that says myth, just remember it's not. That means truth. You have to take it the other way because they will lie the hell to you guys. Darwin's joined. Hi, Darwin. Nice for you to join. How are you doing? Guess what I watched the other day? The new Star Trek movies. I know you're original Kirk, but they weren't too bad. Kerry has wrote to Jane. Sorry, sometimes I start reading things before I read what it is. Shane's just put laughing faces. That's because he knows forgive me if you're not he knows that that ticking boxes exercise on the titanium. Yeah, we caught you out, Shane. Shane's right. It's okay. No worries at all. Cool. Brian's wrote, greetings, world's best research. Oh, well, thank you very much, Brian. And I know you research thoroughly as well. So it's just a shame more people don't. I know Brian. I've seen Brian's messages on other people's. Probably not recently, but probably a year or so ago, I used to see Brian's messages on other people's posts about Anunnaki and stuff, where Brian's calling them out. It's just a shame that there's so many people out there just make up so much crap. It's even worse now with the AI. They're just knocking out these videos and they get shared. Oh, I don't know. Brian's wrote, how's everyone doing? Everyone is fine except for there's one person on here that's not doing well, but I'm joking. No, everyone's. Hopefully, everyone's doing well. Hopefully, everyone's good. Scrolling down, Samantha's wrote, sorry, I didn't mean to request. I can't like the screen as it sends a request. Sorry, no worries at all. I don't generally look down there. Sorry, but yeah. If you do, if any of my Patreon users wants to jump on, just say, tell me who you are and that you want to jump on. You don't have to tell me your name. Just say you want to jump on, and I'll work out who you are. Brian's put a wavy hand. Brian's wrote, yeah, there's no room to tap for likes. Thank you, guys. It doesn't really make that much difference, to be honest, because we're still going to be stuck at the limit that they limit me at. Brian's wrote, cancel my request. Laugh out loud. I'm guessing you also done the same. Wero Dog has put what looks like a Bigfoot symbol icon. If it is, that's the first time I've seen that one. Cool. Brian's wrote, I tried to chat with ChatGPT about the Anunnaki and it was gaslighting. It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Do you know? Wait for this. You probably saw the video. So as I'm doing this Bible rewritten, I'm not the greatest speller. I've admitted that. So sometimes I use AI just to go through it all and make the grammar and spelling because I was the thickest kid in school, so I need help. And so I uploaded it to DeepSeek instead of ChatGPT. Don't ask me why I chose DeepSeek this time, but I chose DeepSeek, and it read it. And as you saw, if you watched that video, it said, I'm paraphrasing now, but this is a sort of research that they love, meaning I guess the people that created DeepSeek, and it talked about how I've basically solved that this is just from the Bible rewritten, but how I've solved that the pantheon of gods were the Anunnaki, and that there was more than one god. And this is the AI telling me that. And normally AI is saying there's no such thing as Anunnaki, it's a myth, blah blah blah. But yeah, DeepSeek actually read it and went, wow, this is great research type thing. I was like, I'm going to start using that a bit more. So yeah, very very interesting how how biases in these AIs show through. Brian's right, also being condescending. It does. It does. That's yeah. It's annoying. It's frustrating, isn't it? That's why if you've ever listened to any of my chats where I do those live chats while I'm driving with AI, there's a few times I've said, "Don't make me come in there and slap you," to the AI, because it is condescending. It really is. But try DeepSeek. I don't think it has the ability to talk verbally like Grok, etc. But it seems to be better than the others. Tuckers wrote, so would animals have a jinn spirit inside them the same as humans? When you say jinn, so from my angle of view of everything, the jinn are a second type of light energy being, not the same ones as the ones that join with us. If you're saying, would animals have one of the same ones that we have, sort of the light energy beings, then yes, I would say so, because when you talk to clairvoyance, mediums, etc., and not just those, but there's people that have, there's a particular person that's their cat died and their son didn't know that the cat died and saw the cat as a ghost. But yeah, clairvoyance and mediums, basically the animals that they say that they see on the other side, generally obviously family pets, animals that have some sort of relationship with humans, have a pineal gland, which is interesting. So they don't sort of say, oh, they've seen an ant on the other side. They see creatures or animals that have a pineal gland, which makes you think that the pineal gland, which seems to be, if you go right back to the Eye of Eye of Horus, is to do with the pineal gland. So it does make sense that certain animals, if they've got a pineal gland, would have one of these orbs join with them. If you're referring to the jinn, in other words, what I believe is a second type of entity, similar to the light energy beings, and the jinn seems to be the ones that possess people and try and take over, etc. Would animals have that? Now, if you look online, it will say, oh, back in the day, back in Arab times, like Prince of Persia, those kind of Arabian Nights type times, they say that the jinns would inhabit a snake, for example, and then the snake would go crazy. But obviously that's just people seeing a snake going crazy for some reason or other, and just making up that a jinn had gone inside this snake, and there's no way they would ever know. So if you actually look online what they say about the jinn, it literally everything you can think of they've said it does, which I don't think it does. I think these are just people making up stories as it goes along. But yes, I do think they could possess animals. Whether or not they want to, they're obviously intelligent if they're real, and I can't see any reason why they're not. They're obviously intelligent. Now, would they benefit by going with an animal for whatever reason? I don't know. I can't answer that. But yeah, I do think I think they're the ones that possess people. I have done a chapter in a book about why the jinn would be the ones that possess people as opposed to the light energy beings, because they're the ones that seem to join with us while we're in the mother's womb. So it seems that jinns possess, because most of the people that get possessed seem to be their energy's low, their chakra's low, their whole being is low, and that's when the jinn seems to be able to somehow push in and possibly push out another orb that's already in there with the pineal gland, or both of them fight at the same time for the pineal gland. But that's the pineal gland. Also, don't forget, has got a receiver and a transmitter built in, which sounds stupid, but it's a certain crystal that you can actually create. You can literally transmit with that crystal that's inside the pineal gland and receive a message. So it makes sense that the orb would connect with that And I've gone through the whole thing with whether or not plasma would be able to connect with it if plasma was alive, and scientists are now starting to say, I have done research into that, scientists are now starting to think that plasma could be, certain plasma types could be alive. So if it was, if the orb is, ancient and joins with us, then it would learn everything just as the emerald tablets say. So that's why I give a lot of credence to those emerald tablets. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for the question. Scrolling down. Just reading. Nicole has wrote, did Anunnaki prefer lapis lazuli because of its colour or its properties? Mental clarity. Interesting question. So the lapis lazuli with the Anunnaki. Now, I don't know whether they had it on their home planet. They don't. I've never read anything where they said, "Oh, they had lapis lazuli on their home planet." The thing with lapis lazuli is the nearest place to where they were over in Eridu. So they had lapis lazuli when they were in Eridu. So if you look at it from the time perspective, Eridu was the first place, which was basically bottom of Iraq, Iran, and is right near the Persian Gulf. That's where they set up base. That's where what's that period called? Ubaid period come from, which is the oldest known city. But long story short, Eridu was the first place. Now they had lapis lazuli there, but it doesn't come from there. It comes from the nearest place that we know of. It comes from Afghanistan, so it's quite a trek. So what made them hunt for lapis lazuli, or were they just looking around or whatever and found it? Dig it out, use it for all sorts of things. The throne was in the Bible. The throne's made of sapphire, which is basically lapis lazuli. If you don't know the difference between lapis lazuli and sapphire, you would go, it's either lapis lazuli or sapphire. But we know it's lapis lazuli because we've got the Artrahasis. Was it Artrahasis? I can't remember if it's Artrahasis. There is a tablet which no, it's not the Artrahasis. There's a tablet in Oxford University translations that tell us that someone built Enlil, one of the Anunnakis built Enlil a lapis lazuli throne, and of course the sapphire throne for the Most High is Enlil, so it's lapis lazuli. So they had everything. They had it in their beards. Now the question that Nicole's posed is, what benefit was it for them? Now supposedly certain crystals can give us health benefits, and if they're so the thing is, did they know that? Do they have the equipment to sort of work out what, you gotta remember they're here on Earth. There's only really a handful of them in a big scheme of things. Did they bring down every single bit of technology and say, oh, this will look for certain types of material, such as gemstones, etc., or did they have something similar to a tricorder in Star Trek, which would look at various things and have multiple functions? In which case, did they find the lapis lazuli and think, this is great for health reasons? I can't answer that, or whether they just like the look of it. It is a stone. I mean, it's a beautiful looking stone. But I mean, Enki Enki had an island. It's long gone now, but it was in off the coast of Africa. It's buried now, probably from the tsunami that came, the Great Flood. And he built a house out of lapis lazuli, or someone built it for him, a domain, which is where the first Kalus went, which was Adam and Eve. So this was 100,000 years ago. When they went back, they would go back to where Enki was living. So that was across the ocean from Eridu and Mesopotamia, etc., where they came to teach people. So the question is, what benefit did the lapis lazuli have for them? I don't know. I mean, if they did ingest gold, which there is a lot. Thank you, Kevin. There's a lot of suggestion that certainly the humans back then possibly did, based off of lingams, etc. Then, if the Anunnaki also ingested gold, we know they had the elixir plant, which gave them longevity of life. So, is it something that they felt was more health benefits than it was, pretty? I would probably say health benefits more than the look of it. That's just my gut feeling, but I can't answer it. So it's a good question. Go number 3 in the class for that, but I can't answer it because I've never read anything that said that they had it on their own planet or that it's a reason. But they did like the look of it, so it wasn't, it wasn't just like some people wear a copper band for arthritis and things like that. That's practical, and when you look at the copper band, you kind of think, well, that's not very very attractive. So I think it may have been 2 reasons, but I can't say 100%. Sorry. Good question. Some actual history. Why do you think disclosure is happening now? Why now? Won't be full, but why, please? You're right. Yeah, I don't think it will be full. I think we'll get. I mean, if you go back to 2012, they started to release some information. I know because every ufologist, similar to me, coast to coast, I am, and all of them. Were going mental. George Knapp, everyone was going mental because there was a couple of things that was released by the Pentagon in 2012, and everyone was going, "Wow, this is going to change history. Everyone's going to be chatting about it." And then I remember listening to Coast about a month later, and the guests that they had on was like, "What happened? Why isn't this in front page news? Why isn't this on every news station?" So obviously there was some sort of disclosure back then, but no one really cared, and obviously the media wasn't interested in it. But now you've got to ask yourself, why now? Because the media are actually pushing it out, and they have been slowly. 10, 15 years ago, you would have been called a tinfoil hat for suggesting it, but now you look at the news, and it's they're talking about it seriously. So the question is, what's changed? Is it because Nibiru's coming back round and we ain't got a choice and we're going to know about it? Is it because there is the treaty that they had maybe running out? Is it because the quarantine around Earth that supposedly a Galactic Federation or Council of Aliens has around us is running out? Now, I did hear that it had run out a few years back, but whether or not that's true, I don't know. So the question is, why now? I mean, Trump obviously is not your conventional president, so he can and will do things against the grain. But again, even by doing that, all we'll get is these odd. I think we're not going to get here's a video footage of a grey alien, or here's the Roswell crashed footage, and I don't think we're ever going to get that. I think we're just going to get these flying objects, which if you look back, what was it, probably 10 years ago, there was a commander-in-chief, American commander-in-chief, saying, oh, we can spot these objects that are flying and we don't know which country they're coming from. Right, hold that thought. Then go back to 1953. There's a commander on. You can look it up on YouTube. A commander saying, "We're tracking these objects. We don't know where they're coming from, which country they're coming from." In other words, they're not UFOs. They're Russian or whatever. And so run on 40, 50, 60 years, and the same spiel, the same crap that come out of their mouth. You telling me they can't figure out what direction that these, after knowing about them for 50, 60 years, and they can't work out where they're coming from? Yeah. So I don't know what reason there is. I've had a few ideas over the time why I think, more recently that they're bringing them out, but I don't know. I'd love to think it's just because Trump is pushing the agenda, but we did have the disclosure, government disclosure, where certain people stood in front of Congress recently and testified, etc. We had the release of the Tic Tac UFO footage that was from 20 odd years ago, but only released fairly recently. So there is some sort of move to disclose, but then at the same time, you've got people disappearing that's connected with, anti-gravity, which would obviously follow suit with the aliens. So it's a bit weird that both those are happening at the same time. Maybe, see, what I said last time on the live was maybe there are people that actually want to push the disclosure and are actually really trying, but the independent researchers, the TikTokers and whatever else, and the YouTubers will, or even independent news stations will go after the people. When I say go after, go and try and get interviews with people that work on those type of things, and of course those people are now disappearing. So, would that be the case? Is that why, knowing that disclosure is slowly happening, they're getting rid of the particular people that would be able to grass up and give us more information? Is that what's happening? I don't know, Samantha. I'd love to know the answer. As you say, I think it's going to be soft disclosure. I don't think it's going to be his, the real camera footage from Roswell, which, that Roswell footage is amazing. You've all seen the alien autopsy, I'm sure. There is a couple of frames in there. I'll have to watch it again one day, but there is a couple of frames that Ray Santilli did stitch in to the actual footage that were genuine. But you look at that creature that they created, the alien that they created, and then look at the crop circle. I think it wasn't the Arecibo. It was another one in England where there's a disc in the alien grey's face, and then you can also look at other greys, like that woman that disappeared or died or been killed or whatever happened to her, and she was talking about, and I think somehow there's a picture of one of the aliens which is spot on to the alien autopsy footage. So you pretty much can say that that's a grey. So yeah, I don't know whether something's happening, whether there's a time running out for things. But yeah, it's a good question, Samantha. Unfortunately, I can't answer it. Go number 3 in the class. So that's a good question. Bella's wrote, "You're here now. Thank you." Yes, we're stuck at that 30 mark now, but at least it's better than the 5 mark. Thank you, Bella. Brian's wrote, "AR asks OGH for help." I wish it did. Yeah. What you can do, there is certain AIs that you can actually teach your own. So basically, an AI agent, you can teach it your own research instead of it being from government or whoever it is that's behind certain AIs. Samantha's rep, DeepSeek is not government restricted, is it? Made by conspiracy theories? No, I can't remember. I think DeepSeek is the Chinese one, so I don't think it's going to be restricted in the same way that others. No, when I've spoken to Grok, Grok's given me different answers to ChatGDP, and I've sort of said, "Oh, that's interesting because ChatGDP wouldn't have gave me that." And then Grok turns around and says, "Well, that's because that's restricted." But even ChatGDP, even Grok's restricted. So, but yeah, so far DeepSeek seems to be the better one. I've used them all. Gwen or Quen, you name it. I've used them to test them. Zia's wrote, "Great." I'm not sure what that's referring to, but hopefully it's the chat or something. I don't know. Samantha's wrote, "Did the Anunnaki ever cut their hair?" It's a really you go number 1 in the class. So that's a really good question. I have thought about that a lot. So we know they had turbans. We've got carvings of them with turbans. They even mention the word turban. So we know that the sort of Pakistani type people would have got, and in fact, Inanna had a turban in one of her carvings. So we know, and Inanna was in charge of the Indus Valley. So we know that humans got the idea of a turban from the Anunnaki. Now, why did the Anunnaki bother with a turban instead of just a hat? Now, obviously, they were out in the sun, and the sun being in Africa and the Middle East was hot. So, would a turban be better than a hat? I don't know. They did have different style hats as well. So, for example, if you look at Enki, he wore a turban type thing. Enlil had almost like one of those fez hats, very similar to a fez hat, which you'd see over in the Middle East. So, what benefit was there for a turban? Was it to do with their hair? Now, we've got carvings of them where their hair is actually goes down the back and it's done up like a bun. You remember the old 1940s women, or even more modern times, where people were in a kitchen, restaurant kitchen, and they have these hair nets, and they're sort of the hair's bunched up at the back. So we've got carvings of them with their hair up like that. Again, what significance is there for that? I don't know, but virtually all Sumerian carvings of them they don't show, I can't think of any where they're showing their hair. However, move over to Rome and Greece, and the equivalent same Anunnaki, and you've got them not wearing anything. They've got their hair, long flowing hair down, but it's not down to their bum, or it's not touching the floor. So if we kind of extrapolate the fact that if any of those ancient Greek or Roman carvings are the same, or accurate, then we could say that yes, they did cut their hair, and maybe when they moved to Greece and Rome, they decided to forget the hats because it may be a little bit cooler. I don't know. So I would say they cut their hair simply because if you don't cut your hair, you would need, you'd end up with a Marge Simpson style turban that would be huge. So I would imagine they cut their hair, and I was the turban put as a symbol when they were getting their carvings done? In other words, did they wear turbans all the time? Personally, I don't think they did. I think certain carvings, like how you have royalty, when the pictures of the Queen used to be painted, and she'd be there, or the Prince Philip or whoever, King Charles, whatever, and they get these portraits done, and they're wearing their regalia, they're wearing their badges and their medals of honor and all that crap. I have a feeling that that's what the carvings are representing, the best of. I can't imagine them having wearing absolutely everything like that every single day. So that's my gut feeling. Obviously, they don't. Maybe I should look into cutting their hair being cut. But of course, it's would the Anunnaki bother telling a scribe to write down that he had his £10.99 haircut done? I can't imagine them telling that. But I mean, they've talked about all sorts of things. To be honest with you, they've talked about toothache and ladies and gentlemen time, and how how someone got a baby because of someone doing certain things, and how they laid with each other and all that kind of stuff. So there is a possibility that somewhere out there is a text where it was saying, underneath the turban, or they didn't put the turban on that day. So yeah, I will try and, if you can remind me in the background. It's a really good question. Thank you for asking. Go number one in the class for that. Brian's wrote a question. Have you come across a reliable way to contact them, like how people use smoke? If you're referring to the Anunnaki, the problem there is it seems that from my research, it seems their original language is Sumerian. Everything seems to point to that. So in order to talk to, I mean, even backing that up a little bit, when they sent the Voyager probe out, they put the gold disc on Voyager, and they had greetings in different languages, including Sumerian, which is a dead language. The chances that an alien race would know what Sumerian is, if we just pretend it was the first language and it was just and there's no derivative off of it, so it was a standalone language. So the chances that an alien race would ever know what Sumerian is, slim. I mean, absolutely, probably impossible, unless the Voyager was sent out, and if one of the Anunnaki intercepts it, at least they'll know that it's us sending it because we knew Sumerian or their own home language. So if we was trying to contact them, the first thing we would probably do is need to know their language. That's not to say that, Ninurta didn't go back to Nibiru, which I do believe he did, to be in charge, take over from King Anu. But does he know English? I mean, you got to remember, he probably left about 1,000 years ago. So, he was Apollo and all that kind of stuff. So did he know ancient Greek? So it kind of depends on what language they knew to even start any kind of dialogue with them, if we managed to get a radio transmission from them. And again, they did have the ability to transmit from here to Nibiru. Now, it doesn't say how long it took the radio signal. So we assume that, when Alula says, hey, come down, or when we're looking at the Artrahasas, for example, when they're talking about King Anu in joining in this assembly, we're either assuming he's suddenly come down or was down at that point, or they're talking to him live, like a WhatsApp or a phone call, back to his home planet. Now, we know they couldn't see, there was no visual, but it was definitely audio back to their home planet. We know they couldn't see because when that King Anu came down and he saw that his daughter looked older than him, he would have seen that on video calls. So they didn't have that ability. So I don't know if that's who you was referring to with the Anunnaki. So the chances of us contacting the Anunnaki is really slim. And even if we did contact them, would they bother to reply? Yeah, probably not. So, sorry, I was just shutting the door. But it's an interesting question. Go number 2 in the class for that. Thank you, Nicole, as well. Thank you, Nicole. Brian's wrote signals from burning offerings. That was continuing on from used to be signals from burning offerings. I can't say that the Anunnaki saw smoke and thought, "Oh, I'm going to go down for dinner." Obviously, there was the which is actually in the Artrahasas, where Enlil finds out that there's someone on Mount Ararat that's still alive after the Great Flood, and he was cooking. He makes a sacrifice, which was Noah makes a sacrifice, and or eats one of the animals that was on the ark, and then Enlil sees the smoke or smells the aroma of it and says, "What the hell? Who's on this?" Well, it's now an island. It was a mountain, but who's on there? And he went and saw. So I can't imagine them. If we're talking about the Anunnaki, I can't imagine them just seeing smoke and thinking, "I'll go and get something from them." Kevis wrote, "Lapis is UV reactive, also contains pyrite flecks." I have no idea what pyrite flecks is, but that's interesting. Thank you, Kev. Get a gold star for pointing out something that I don't know. Lapis is UV reactive. Interesting. I would need to research that more. Than maybe I should have researched lapis lazuli instead of other things. But yeah, no, thank you, Kev. I didn't know that. Thank you very much. Nicole's right. Do we still have the longevity of life plant now? If so, do you think the elites keep it for themselves? So it seemed to be a plant, an elixir plant. Now, whether or not that was the same plant as the plant of life or the tree of life that was in the spaceship that Adam and Eve first ate from, or whether it was a different plant that they brought down. So it was definitely brought down from their home planet. It's they had it on their home planet because when Adapa goes to Adam, out of Adam and Eve, when he goes to Nibiru, they offer it. They offer the food and drink to him, which would have been the elixir, because that was. I think the King Anu says, "Why did you not eat the food of life?" or something like that, and then Adapa says, because my Lord told me not to, which was Lord being Enki's father. So do we have the longevity of the plant now? I mean, if you look at who had it that we're last aware of, and it was Upanishad, which was Noah. He had it. Now there's two versions of this. One that was in a well, and another that was in the lake. But either way, it was in water, and Gilgamesh had to swim down. He put bricks on his feet and swam and went down and retrieved it. If it's that difficult to get, which is I think where we get the Fountain of Youth from as well, where the elixir plant would have been in something with water. If it's that difficult, and it was only given to, when you read the Bible, you'll see that Noah was granted long life, or technically it's immortality, but it's obviously not immortality, it's longer life. And so, it wasn't just willy-nilly out there, a big plantation of it. It was obviously something that was highly guarded and looked after. So I don't think we'd ever see the plant now. I can't imagine the Anunnaki, especially after they reduced our lifespan to 120. I can't see them giving us the elixir or leaving it kicking around anywhere at all. So unfortunately, it's a good question. Good, I'm 3 in the class for that, but unfortunately, the logic says that there's no way that they would want us to have that plant, whatever the plant was. Now, Ninma brought it down when she came. So when the first 50 Anunnaki came here, they didn't have it, but when the chief medical officer, which was Enki's sister, half-sister, Nimna, when she came down, TikTok's asking me to put a jigsaw puzzle because it doesn't think that I'm real, which is weird because it's an audio chat and obviously it can't see me, so I guess it's their safeguarding. But thank you for the question. Scrolling down, Mr. Anomalous has wrote, the objects they are showing yesterday are not related to aliens or crafts. It's total separate. So you're saying that the sort of Pentagon or whatever White House that's managed to get these videos shown, you're saying that they're not aliens? I mean, they are unidentified flying objects, which is what the classification is, or unidentified aerial phenomena, if you want to be more modern. So I'm not quite sure what you're referring to then. I know you don't follow me, so it's going to be interesting to find out what you're referring to then, if you don't think that they're, because you wrote they're not related to aliens or crafts. So I'm guessing you're saying that they're spirits. I'm guessing. Please let me know what you're referring to then. If they're not alien, I mean, technically, if they don't belong on Earth, then they are alien, regardless of whether it's a spirit or not. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what you're referring to. Oh, sorry, and then underneath, Mr. Anonymous has wrote, they are plasmoids that are a local undiscovered branch of life. So let me just get this straight. So this object that, bearing in mind, we've got an old painting from Renaissance period of a star very similar to the one that's been filmed. They so I'm just trying to get my head around this. So these things only show themselves very, very infrequent. I mean, so infrequent that you've got two mentions of the one in the Renaissance and one in the military thing. Thank you, Proximo. And so they're local, which would suggest that you'd be able to see them. But you're saying plasmoids. I'm guessing you're saying that they're invisible to the naked eye. But obviously, if we go with that painting, which you can go and look at yourself and just look it up, then they didn't have night vision equipment back then. So you're saying that this star is a plasmoid. which does seem to have a structure to it. Now, I think what you're really trying to get at is really the orbs, not these kind of star type things. The orbs, yes, are plasma. I would totally agree with you. Certainly the ones that's basketball size, if not slightly bigger. There are more metallic ones which we know of, such as the Boogosphere and the one that was found back in '79, I think it was. Don't quote me on the date. Where people had found very similar to the Boogosphere one, that also hovered and blah blah blah. So I'm guessing you're not saying. I'm guessing you're just saying the orbs are local. So again, the problem with that is if they're local, they're highly intelligent. They create crop circles because people have seen them create crop circles. So unless those people were lying and then created the crop circle themselves, and also made the crop circle that they said that this orb created, and they also add a microwave signature inside that just to pretend that it was this orb that did it, and they somehow managed to take a microwave device and only microwave the actual crop circle and nothing outside of it. Are you saying, sorry, as I know, let's cut the chase. They're not local. They're highly intelligent. They are local now because they're obviously here on Earth, but they're not something that's indigenous to Earth, even though you say it's an undiscovered branch of life. I would say no. Jane's asked for evidence on that, which I didn't do because I thought I'd go the other option, knowing that one of my amazing followers, more than likely Jane or Kerry, would ask for the evidence. So we'll be interested to see if we get the evidence. Nicole's wrote, what we a pons. Oh, I'm guessing weapons. Sorry, it's got some dots in the middle of it, and that's why I was reading it as it is. What weapons do you think the government is using against people that speak out? Oh God. If I tell you what I believe and what I've researched, I won't be here tomorrow. So I can't. I daren't say some of the stuff. I have sort of hinted at it before with microwave technologies and stuff like that. Yeah, there's microwave technologies where they don't even have to be in the house. There's supposed sort of astral projection where they can have someone sitting in a particular seat in a government installation, and they have a target, and then they try and break through the person's chakra to give them a heart attack and so on, that kind of stuff. So you pretty much name it, I've heard it. Not good, is it? Not good at all. Mr. Anonymous has wrote back to Jane. Yes, I've been recording them for over a decade on the channel. Plenty of evidence. Yeah, so I think what Jane was asking was the evidence that they were here and they were local, as opposed to just being here, because obviously people have seen them. So without saying rude, we kind of, your channel called Plenty of Evidence. Here we go by evidence. We don't sort of just pretend we do evidence. So what Jane's asking for is the evidence that they're local. How do you know that they're 100% local? So sorry, I just, this is how we work here. Don't hate me. This is why you don't follow me, I guess, because we kind of do evidence properly. And again, that sounds condescending, but please, if you can answer that question. If you don't have it, just say, fine, I don't have it, I guess, or I believe. Then that's no problem at all. That's fine. That's why I'm very careful with my words when I say I believe certain things or I have evidence for certain things. You won't have the evidence that they're local. It's just your assumption. So I'm helping you out before the amazing moderators ask you again and again and again, and then eventually you'll hate me and block me because we've sort of called you out on something. So I'm just cutting to the chase, trying to sort it out. I know people say that I'm big-headed because I do all that kind of stuff. I'm not. I'm just matter of fact, just straight to the point. Let's get on. We're all adults. We can all understand where we're going. Mr. Anomalous has wrote, plasmoids are literally outside your door and easy to document with simple mirror signaling. So yeah, we're still waiting for that part, how you knew it was local. Yes, we're not denying that there's not orbs The star one, obviously, you obviously won't be able to answer that either. You probably haven't seen that, but yeah. So when you're saying that what the government's showing us is just plasmoids, I think you might want to rethink how you word things. Sorry, I don't. Zia's wrote yes. Mr. Anonymous wrote, I think when you see more than infrared, you will see the objects that tethers, etc., that mimic like an octopus. Depending which type of infrared you're referring to, because obviously you've got the night visions, really are the better ones, the grade 4 type, the military ones. Jane has wrote to Mr. Anonymous, I know plasmoids exist, which is what I said earlier on about the spirits, etc., and the orbs, but haven't heard of them described as a life form. So Jane's asked him, Mr. Anonymous, can the evidence, because you did say your channel's got the word evidence in it, Jane's asked him for the evidence that they are a life form, which you did say that they were. So I'll be interested to see the evidence. Brian's wrote they probably modify their genes to make their hair grow the way they want. I think there's probably half the men population on the planet will be going, yeah, we'll have some of that. Yeah. Mr. Anonymous wrote to Jane, yes, it's a newly discovered branch of life. There's at least 2 private companies studying them. Cool. Look forward to the evidence. Can't wait to read where the evidence is. So studying something, and by the way, Mr. Anonymous, I have done a live chat. When I say live chat, it's a chat with AI regarding exactly this with the orbs. Hasn't been released yet, but it's on my Patreon page. It's got a drop. It's got a date to drop. I don't know what date that is. So I'm fully aware of the companies that are studying them. So absolutely fully aware. But again, so basically there's a particular location where these things suddenly appear, and they think, I can't remember the location off the top of my head, that's why I do these videos, so I don't have to remember absolutely everything, but basically these companies are studying them because they do appear there, but they seem to think that they're local there, but that's the best place to see them. But then when you realize that they suddenly appear somewhere else in another country, then it doesn't necessarily mean that they are local to that place. It just means that they're more visible in that place, or for whatever reason gaining power from the ground. Have you looked into that? I have. So they may be actually gaining energy from that particular area, which is why they're more abundant in that area, Mr. Anomalous. Sorry. So yes, I have studied it. But it doesn't prove that they're alive. It just proves that there's a object that's seen that is more than likely plasma. I believe they're alive, but we don't just throw out the word evidence unless we have it. Jane has wrote to Mr. Anonymous, since 1956 people have been experimenting with them. Mr. Anonymous has wrote back to Jane, yes, Jane's Constable's book, They Live in the Sky, the pioneer really. So I'm still waiting for the evidence, Mr. Anomalous. Sorry, you did say that your channel has got evidence that they're A, are alive, and B, local. Now, you're going to go back to that same thing that I just mentioned, which doesn't actually prove that they're local. It just means that they're seen in a particular area more than anywhere else. So you won't have the evidence. Sorry, I was just trying to help you out. Maybe when you say things, I'm just trying to help you out. Maybe when you say things, just add the word I believe at the front if you don't have the evidence. Just trying to help you out. Samantha's wrote, hair is considered sacred. Carries DNA, so cutting it is a no-no. Hindu. Sorry, Clark's being bad. That's the last part.
Thank you, my darling.
Thank you, Nicole. Hair is considered sacred, carries DNA, so cutting it is a no-no. Hindus ties it tightly to fit in. Thank you, Nicole, again. Yeah, but the thing is, with the Anunnaki, they did have turbans, quite large turbans, but also the hair was coming out the back, which they didn't obviously tuck the whole lot in. So we've got carvings on. Thank you, Nicole. You don't have to. I've told you, Nicole, I prefer gold. I'll give you the address later to post to. I'm joking. Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, so with the Anunnaki, obviously, it's hard to know whether they did cut it. But I understand what you're saying. You make a valid point there, Samantha. Now, obviously, certain countries, Hindus, for example, would have learnt that from the Anunnaki, same as possibly the circumcision to make someone circumcised was probably because of the Anunnaki again. So there's a lot of things that we've got from the Anunnaki. In fact, in the Bible, who remembers the song? Hark the herald angels sing, da da da, the new John. Guess where the word heralds come from first? Yes, the Anunnaki. And guess what they were? They were just another name for messengers, a slightly different type. They were more divine. They weren't directly sent from the Anunnaki, but they were the ones that would have been contacted by angels. So yeah, everything comes back down to the Anunnaki. Mr. Anonymous wrote, since then mirroring signals, high object and infrared has been producing amazing results. Yes, but still no evidence. Time check 8:30. Thank you very much, Jane. Goddess Jane. Nicole's wrote, some claim that mirrors might be a portal that beings can come through. Have you done research? I have. So years and years, when I was, Christ knows how old, it was scared me actually. I heard at school people talking about that if you put a candle up against a mirror at midnight, the smoke, you will see a spirit in the smoke from the candle in the mirror. Of course, I've never tried that. That's the last thing I want to do. But as I grew older, I started to realise what it's actually referring to. It's the more of a night time. And yes, spirits would be able to probably manipulate the smoke like they do with voices and things like that. There's audio recordings of cats where a cat would meow and the spirit would change the frequency of the cat so it would actually say a word, but of course people think that it's the cat saying it, but it turns out it was a dead person that was trying to communicate through a cat, supposedly, which makes a lot of sense. And so with regards to mirrors, the problem with mirrors is obviously where do you stop with a mirror? Because just because a mirror is made with a particular material at the back and then a particular material at the front so that we can get the reflectiveness, at what point does it stop? If you're looking into a window at night and there's a light behind you, you'll see your reflection again, but that's not a mirror. So, looking at a very shiny car, is that classed as a mirror? So at what point does a mirror become a portal? Does it have to particularly be the type of mirrors? I mean, there's two-way mirrors as well, which don't, adhere to the same thing. So in other words, thank you, James. So in other words, I would say no, it's not a portal, but I can understand why people think it is, because otherwise, if it was a portal, then we would have stories pretty much every day when women spend an hour in front of the mirror. maybe it is a portal when they disappear for an hour and then they come out of the bathroom an hour later. Sorry. Just in case, there is men as well. Just in case, covering myself there. But it's an interesting question. But no, unfortunately, I don't believe there is. I did look into it, but Samantha's right. I put the question in a DM before I forget that you asked me to. Thank you very much. I've now forgotten whatever that question was, but I did say if you could remind me. So thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you, Samantha. Samantha's wrote, pyrite is fool's gold. It looks like gold, but it's just sparkly rock. Yes, I have. Someone sent me some lapis lazuli. One of my. I don't see her, talk to her anymore, which is a real shame. But she sent me some lapis lazuli, a rock, which was lovely. And yeah, when you look in it, you kind of see this sort of gold veins in it, which is very interesting. I didn't know it was classed as fool's gold. Thank you, Samantha, again. Gold star for you for pointing out something that I wasn't aware of. Scrolling down. By the way, if anyone's new to me, the reason why we're not on hundreds of people is because TikTok does limit me. Trust me, they do. If you're interested in anything that I'm saying, I've got documentaries with evidence of the things that I've got evidence for. I've solved things that no one else has solved. Lucifer, Jehovah, Yah, who they were, etc. Just visit my website, click on my profile, go to my website, outtruehistory.co.uk, and you'll see everything you ever need. Nicole's wrote, do you think only certain orbs are able to join and others roam around, which is the ones we see? Yes, I have thought about this question. Very good question. Go number 2 in the class. That was a good question. So I have thought about this a lot. If we extrapolate, the ones that are outside seem to be larger basketball size, and we've done, the amount of people that said they've seen an orb, and I say, is it inside, is it basketball size, or is it tennis ball size? And the ones inside, I think probably 100% have all said tennis ball or smaller, and the ones outside are basketball or slightly bigger. So if we extrapolate that the ones outside that create the crop circles, those slightly bigger orbs, if we can say that they possibly are ones that's evolved or progressed in whatever it is that they're doing. So in other words, they could be the guardian spirits, not angels. Angels are messengers for the Anunnaki. If we look at it from that perspective, then maybe the smaller ones, the little ones that you see on night vision cameras, the ones smaller than tennis balls, are baby ones. Now, there is that place over in wherever, I can't remember, but I have done a video on it, where these orbs are being seen. And so, are they actually being created there? In which case they could be local, but of course we don't have evidence of it, because we do see orbs appear suddenly elsewhere on the planet. So we can't say 100% that they're not just appearing because they've gone through time, bearing in mind they don't have a mass, so they could go forwards and backwards in time, or coming from another solar system or another dimension. We don't know. So we can't say it as evidence. But what we can say is that it does seem that the smaller ones are inside buildings, in which case is the tennis ball size ones, which seem to be, from my research, the ones that join with the pineal gland, even though we can't visibly see them, but we can't see infrared, we can't see microwave, we can't see a hell of a lot. Is the smaller ones baby ones, new ones that haven't learned, ones that's gone back in time to relearn? I don't know, but my gut feeling is, to answer your question, is I think the tennis ball size ones are the ones that join with us. The ones that are smaller are not. Now, they could just be brand new orbs or some other reason. But so yes, good question. I can't remember if I put you in the class, so I'm losing track. Go number 2 in the class. That was a good question. So that's my take on it, because we don't have evidence for that, but we do have enough people saying the smaller ones seem to be seen in the buildings, etc. In other words, when someone's passed over, you get to see that size orb, generally, the bigger size. That's not to say you don't see the smaller ones, but generally it's the tennis ball size ones. Buddy Lee is right. I think they are drones manipulating light. I'm not quite sure which particular thing you're referring to, whether it's the I mean, if you're saying that they're sort of modern drones, bearing in mind people have been painting UFOs for hundreds and hundreds of years, so we kind of know that there are objects in the sky. And in fact, there's one particular painting that actually shows people in the craft in the object. Thank you, History and Coins. How are you, History and Coins? I hope you're well. So I certainly wouldn't say they're modern things, because obviously when you've got stories back before we had the ability to have drones of UFOs, then it kind of, there was the stories going right back, before even the Roswell incident. Kenneth Arnold obviously saw a formation of what looked like boomerangs. That was in 1947, I think a month before the Roswell crash. But, you can go even further back than that and find stories of flying saucers, etc. Genexus wrote, the aliens on the moon, did they come after Anunnaki? Do they communicate with them? So everything that I've researched shows to me that the Anunnaki were here in our solar system before anyone else. Then about 10,000 years ago now, I don't know whether it was slightly before or slightly after, but around the flood time, so we're talking 10,000 to 14,000 years ago, around the flood time, aliens, what we call modern aliens, turned up. So we've got carvings of what looks like little greys. We've got the stories of the Hopi Indians and other ancient stories of these sort of ant people. We've got the Mexican mummies, which date back to around 10,000 years ago. We've got the Nazca mummy, which dates around 9 to 10,000 years ago. So we kind of got some. So we got the Dropa stones, which said that supposedly said that there was a crashed UFO or crashed spaceship, alien spaceship, whatever you want to call it, crashed craft that crashed here, and the occupants were stuck here. So if we go with that, because I can't find anything prior to that, that makes a lot of sense, because after that is when Marduk started to use these new aliens that he found with the elongated skulls, again, Nazca mummies and the Mexican mummies, to create the new breed of humans with the elongated skulls, the genuine elongated skulls. And so that would have been after the Great Flood as well. So if aliens did come here, I would my money's on that they would have been on the moon after the Great Flood. So we're talking, as I say, 10 to 14,000 years ago is when I think they turned up. Now, did they stay on the moon because there's a better reason for them? Yes, because obviously the Anunnaki are not as advanced as the Greys or the Tall Whites. They're just totally two different leagues of technology. I mean, the Anunnaki's cool, but yeah, nowhere near the same. So if the Greys eventually came here, and I certainly believe there is, and we've got the mummies for them and everything, then would they have been able to create a base on the moon fairly easy compared to the Anunnaki? Hell yes. I mean, the Anunnaki struggled to mine for gold on an asteroid belt. So, the Greys, from the stories I've heard, they have the technology to literally cut a rock out of a planet and hollow it out and use it as a spaceship. So, that's where you get the Wumma type craft. And I've also heard that I can't remember if it was the Greys, but an alien race was collecting asteroids and making its own planet. So thank you, History and Coin. So I think the Greys had the ability to go onto the moon. We're mining now for helium-3 and some other materials on the moon, so it makes sense that if we're doing that for certain materials, then the Greys, and supposedly on the moon there's more than one alien race, so it's not just the Greys. I think there's a few different races on the moon, supposedly. Buddies wrote, I have evidence what they are, and then wrote underneath, I have seen it and watched it happen 1,000 times. Let's just go back to what Buddy was saying. I think they're drones manipulating lights. I have evidence of what they are. So the problem there, Buddy, don't hate me. I know you follow me, so don't hate me. But I'm just saying, you can't say that every single thing that's seen throughout our recorded history is exactly what you're saying. So I'm just trying to help you out. So what you're saying is, I'm just going to put words in your mouth if you don't mind. I have evidence of what the ones I've seen are. Would you agree with that, buddy? I'm just covering you, because otherwise someone will say, thank you, History, and someone will say, oh, what about the one that I saw, and then describe something that you haven't got evidence for, and then you'll go, oh, well, that's different, and in which case I have to be so careful how I word things, so I'm just trying to help out people, and I know it comes across rude. It's not meant to be. Buddies wrote, they are drones looking like plasmoids turning into a drone. And when you say drone, I'm guessing you're referring to a man-made drone. So you're saying that a plasma droid, a plasma, I'm guessing orb, accidentally stops becoming a plasma, and then we can see the little propellers and stuff. Is that what you're saying? That's the evidence you've got, that you can see a plasma, and then either inside it or it stops being plasma. A drone, a more than likely military drone, but because of the length of time that they're up in the sky, and no one hears the propellers of a drone. They're quite loud, but is that what you're saying, buddy? I'm not. It sounds like I'm picking on you. I'm not. I'm just trying to get. You know how I work. I get to the bottom of everything, and that's what I'm asking. So, if you could be more elaborate on how that works, what you've seen, that would be interesting. Jane's asked for the evidence from Buddy. That's what I knew was going to happen. Monier's wrote, "What did Black Cat mean to the Anunnaki?" That's an interesting question. So the domesticated cat was created by the Anunnaki. Guess where they came from? Yes, you guessed it. Middle East, Near East, Far East. But Middle East is where the first, even though mainstream will tell you, oh, there's cats that were over in Asia, but that's not necessarily the oldest ones that were found. So in other words, just be like if I dig up a skeleton now and it's 5,000 years old, doesn't mean it's the oldest skeleton in the world. It just means I found one and I can date it to that date. So anyway, but yes, all of the domestication came from the Middle East, which is where the Anunnaki were. So you got the pigs, you got certain cattle that was domesticated, and you've got cats as well. What significance the black cat had with the Anunnaki, I don't know. I've never come across it. Obviously, the Anunnaki were in charge of Egypt, and they did like cats, certainly certain types of cats where they would mummify them, etc. But they also mummified scarab beetles, so we can't say that that just because they mummified cats, therefore that they were important, because they even mummified scarab beetles. So was a scarab beetle important? I know there's obviously pendants that they had, and they had carvings of scarab beetles. So were they just equally as important as a cat? I don't know. So I don't know the answer to that one. Yeah, sorry, I can't answer that. I don't know if there even is a reason that that, to answer your question. I'd like to know what made you ask that. Just in case you know something that I don't, that'd be cool. Buddies wrote, yes, I have lots of videos on another username. That's replying to the person that asked about the evidence. Thank you, Spooky. Thank you. Zia's wrote, what do they want regarding any aliens? So from my research, and again, this is just my research, I've got a 3-hour documentary on everything you need to know about spirits if you're interested. You can get to it from my website. But basically, these entities are more than likely from the beginning of time. I can't say 100%. I did read one of the Emerald Tablet translations that did say they came from the beginning of time. There was 2 types. There was the light one, and then they called it the other one the night or dark, which makes me think that was the jinn. And they, at some point, if you read the Emerald Tablet, if you figure out how to read it, it does seem that these entities became physical over Christ knows how many billions of years, and then ended up back as energy again. So it does seem that the Greys, if you listen to Linda Moulton Howe, she's been told that 3 different alien races that don't like each other are trying to steal each other's orbs. So it's like sort of a game, I guess, but obviously not a game. So the orbs, if they also have the ability to have the orb connected with them, then if you can see the trick is we can hypnoregress someone, and if we can hypnoregress someone that has an orb with them, we can get that information. So it's basically like a hard drive being connected. You take the hard drive out, put it into another computer, and you can access that computer, that hard drive, even though it was never nothing whatsoever to do with that new computer, but you can access all the files. And that's the same thing with an orb. So when you get hypnotized, you're remembering the life that orb was with before. Now, the trick there is if that orb was with someone from the future, because again, we know that they can go forwards and backwards in time, because when you talk to a dead person, which is basically the orbs that's left someone's body, and for a period, the human's in control or the dead person's in control of the orb, and they talk through mediums, clairvoyance, whatever, spirit boxes, and they tell you stuff that's happened in the future, is going to happen in the future, and it happens, or stuff in the past that no way your loved one would know. But they tell you that, which means the orbs can travel forwards and backwards in time. In which case, your spirit, the dead person, can travel forwards and backwards in time until the orb takes back over and then it goes around into another person. But look at the warfare that you would have if you had the ability to have one of these orbs from another alien race, and it basically, you can, if you could get the information out of it, like we can do hypnotize. I mean, imagine what you could do with these orbs, and you get all the information about absolutely everything to do with another alien race by literally looking at the memories of the orb that was with someone with an alien. You could, learn so much about another alien race by nicking its orb. So that's probably why they do it. That's what I would do it for. So yeah, it's an interesting question. Thank you. Go number 3 in the class. That was a good question. Scrolling down. James is right. I feel spirits are trying to communicate with me through nature. Yeah, I mean, I did a recent research into the video's not out yet, but it's on my. Well, you can get to it from my website. But basically, it's how spirits communicate with us. So whether it's a robin or a butterfly, etc. And so I went through the whole process of that, and it does seem that there's people out there that don't even know about robins, or butterflies, that supposedly a dead person or spirit is using a robin or a butterfly or certain other things, smells, etc., to communicate with a living person. And so when you look deep into it, you realise that there's people out there that have no idea about the robins, and yet suddenly they see a robin over and over. Now you could say, if they were aware of robins, I'm using robins as an example, if they were aware of robins and heard it before their loved one passed, well, I've just seen a robin. It's like when you buy a new car, you suddenly see that same car, people driving the same bloody car, which you didn't even notice before, but now you suddenly pick up on it. So you could say, but a deceased person now sees robins because or the living person sees robins because they're aware of that and they're maybe looking out for it. But thank you, History and Coins. But there are cases where people didn't know about the robin whole thing and would talk to their friends and say, I've got, I've seen this bloody robin keeps coming, right up to my window and da-da-da. And then they say, that could be your mum, partner, whatever, deceased person. And then they find out about the robin then. So it does seem, now, if you look at the statistics of how plasma works, it can actually affect a robin and a butterfly, for example, by having an electromagnetic effect on the brain, which you could say, well, hang on a minute, how's that work? How's it going to make a robin go over to your house? Well, actually, it can. It's the same principle as an ECG, but in reverse. So, yeah, when you say, that you're thinking that something that's trying to communicate with it, it's totally possible it is. Especially if you, thank you, History, especially if you sort of know someone that would be wanting to try and contact you. Obviously, normally you wouldn't get someone trying to contact you if they weren't, somehow connected with you. So yeah, have a think, and more than likely are. Genexus wrote, did Ningazida fully understood about souls when they made contact with the Greys, or he knew in Nibiru? So Ningazida would have been Thoth. He would have been the one that wrote the Book of the Dead around 8,000 years ago, give or take. I know mainstream will say no, the Book of the Dead, but if you actually look in the Book of the Dead, there's actually a few different types of books of the dead that are buried with people. So it's not, there wasn't, one book and it was written on that particular day. It's a process really. But yeah, from my research, it was about 8,000 years ago, give or take, with nine. It was after the flood. So that would have been Ningazida that done it, and again, if you believe the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, he then had the ability to create the Khafre's pyramid, which gave him the ability to have an out of body experience and actually talk with the orbs as opposed to a deceased person. So your question is, did Ningazida, which would have been Thoth, fully understood about souls when they made contact with the Greys? They knew about spirits before they even come to Earth. So 445,000 years ago, they was aware of spirits. Didn't have the ability to talk to them, I don't think, until after the flood. So hopefully that answers the question, because it depends on when the aliens turned up, the other aliens turned up, to know whether it was exactly that point. I mean, for all we know, the Greys could have told them and said, "Look, Thoth, there, these orbs that you guys are aware of, or spirits that you're aware of. This is what you need to do," and done a little bit of a deal with them. You got to remember, those Greys were probably the dwarfs in the Norse stories, the ones that built the weapons for Thor, the hammer. So when you look at the Norse stories, it was probably them. I mean, the Norse stories are only a few thousand years old, so obviously that was after all of the battles and everything, when they ended up over in Anna, and Utu ended up over in Scandinavia. So if you look at it like that, yeah, they may have knew about them, or they may have got help from the Greys about the spirits. It was a good question. Go number 2 in the class. I like that question. James is right. Of course they restrict you. They don't like the truth. No, I know. I can't believe we broke the 30 mark. We're on 46 now. I mean, gone are the days of the hundreds I used to have. But yeah, no, I'm more than happy with 45, even if I just had 2 people listening to me, and you know who you are. I feel sorry for the moderators who listen to me over and over again. Samantha's wrote, "Thank you, and you are welcome." Oh, you're more than welcome yourself. Nicole's wrote, "If orbs can be created, do they come about with knowledge already? Maybe maybe those ones that need to join us to learn." I don't know the answer to it, because I don't know whether they are created, whether it was something that happened at the Big Bang or the start of the universe that created all of them. Or whether or not they can be created. I mean, technically, energy once created can't be destroyed. It can only be sort of dissipated into something else. So I can't answer that. I'm afraid we just don't have enough data to know how they're formed, and I mean, I know people out there. I've heard people say, "Oh, they're formed because of us." In other words, the orb is created when we're created. In other words, it's our soul, but of course, if you do the research, it doesn't ever add up like that. It can't do. There's just too many discrepancies with it that fits the proper version, which I say proper, my version, which is where they're an entity that joins as opposed to us creating our own soul. Otherwise, you wouldn't have reincarnation if you had your own soul. So, yeah, I can't answer it. It's a good question. Go number 3 in the class for that, but I can't answer it. I'm sorry, I just don't have enough data. 9 p.m. Thank you, Goddess Jane. Thank you. It's I'm 20 past now, so I'll whiz through the questions. Samantha's right. I saw a blue light ball float across the room when my nan died. Went through curtains and window at night. Wow. Can I ask what size it was? I'm guessing about tennis ball size. But that's great to hear. I mean, it's not great to hear nan died. I'm saying it's great to hear that it might give you peace of mind for your nan. Hopefully, it did. Scrolling down, Samantha's right. I didn't know that she had died at that time. Was strange. There's a lot of that sort of thing happens. People's mobile phones ring. And their friend had died, and they didn't know their friend had died, and their phone rang exactly the same time with naught 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 on the telephone, and it just rings. And then in the morning, they find out that their friend, loved one, whatever, died, and then they look at the time on the phone, and the call was received at exactly the same moment that they died. So there's a lot of that kind of where people don't know that they died and end up finding out some way, with an orb, for example, as well. So I would certainly take that as comfort, especially if you didn't know that she had died. So you're not, it's not like you saying, "Oh, I'm looking for an orb," because you wouldn't have known to look for an orb. So that's really reassuring that she's carrying on. Alive is right. I met the son of an officer who was sent out to the farm where the UFO crashed in Roswell. The son of an officer. Oh, cool. It'd be interesting to know. Sorry, was it a military officer or was it like a police officer? Because obviously, once the military turned up, no one was allowed in there. So I don't know whether it was because it started with the rancher contacting the police, and then newspapers and stuff like that, and then Jesse Marcel went out there, and then police went out there, and then eventually the military went there, and that was the end of it. No one was allowed to go anywhere near it. So I'd be interested to know if it was one of the earlier policemen or the military people that literally were hands on knees crawling through that land, trying to find every single scrap of evidence that they could hide. Anthony's wrote, "There's a being with a triangle head, but I don't know what they are called." I'm not sure if you're referring to the Greys, because I mean they are slightly described as a sort of triangle head. So but I mean, I'm sure you would have known that that's the one you're referring to. I don't know if that's the same one you're referring to. I can't think of any others. I can only assume it's the if you are referring to the triangular head ones, then that's more like the Zeta Zeta aliens. They're the ones that come from Zeta star system. You can see what they look like on that crop circle. Just type in on Google alien face crop circle, and you'll see that's their image of them without the eye. Without the eye covering, which is basically like a membrane that they have, which has probably got technology in it. Personally, I think it does. I don't think it's just sort of like a sunglasses. I think that it's got technology that they can use. A bit like VR, where we're getting glasses now with virtual reality and mixed reality. Eventually, we will get. We've got material now, plastics that can bend, so and can have image on them. So eventually, someone will put an image on a contact, on a thing that can go over your eyes, and so you wouldn't even need to wear glasses. It would actually be in, and of course, aliens don't really have noses, so glasses is probably not a good idea for them. So it's straight into the eyes, like a contact lens. Jason's wrote, "What do you think about the alien files? Why would they start telling the truth?" Someone did ask that right at the beginning of the live chat. There could be a myriad of reasons. I mean, bearing in mind they have been releasing stuff, as I mentioned before, back in 2012, they released a couple of bits of information, and the UFO community went mental, and nothing happened thereafter. So, is it just another exercise where they just release a few bits, keep us all happy, and nothing happens, or is there something else that's going on that they're prepping us for? I personally don't think so, but there could be loads of reasons. We could have run out of the quarantine around Earth. The Grenada Treaty may have run out. All sorts of reasons that they may be prepping us. But the worst. If there is going to be an invasion, we would have been dead a long time ago. So it's not they're not aliens are not going to come and invade us in that way. They may put hybrids here on Earth that I believe they have done, but so I'm not quite 100% sure what the thing is. Whether it's just here's a few more scraps, now shut up type of thing, which is what they did back in 2012, and people did shut up for ages, right up until now, when we got some more scraps coming through. So I don't know. Thank you, History Inquiry. So I don't know the answer yet. I don't have enough information to be able to formulate why they're doing that. I mean, again, Trump is not like the normal sort of person, but then we do have these government disclosure panels that certain people talk about certain things. Now, there was a pastor that was told to be prepared to tell his congregation and other pastors that a biblical paraphrasing, but of biblical proportions. And of course, if they start bringing out the Anunnaki, which is the best thing that they could ever do, in my opinion, because that will stop all this crappy religion crap that's going on with people. Well, he's a Jew, he's a Muslim, he's this, he's that. That should end all of that once we realise that the Anunnaki were the ones that created us. Now, if that's the case, that would be great. But I think there's certain religions that will still carry on because they benefit from their particular religion, so they're not going to give up that religion, even if you say his right here is the guy that one of the Anunnakis, but they won't give it up. They'll keep that particular religion. So I don't know what the game plan is at the moment. I don't know if there is one. Maybe it's just all random. Thank you, Nika. Thank you. I think I've pronounced that right. Thank you. Anthony's right. I dreamt about the being when I was in prison in 2016. I don't recall reading prior to that. Oh, the triangle head one. Okay. Like I say, I've been doing this nearly 50 years. I can't. I'm not 100. Don't worry. I started when I was 6, so you can probably guess my age coming up. Or 50. What am I? 26. Yeah. All right. 49 years. I've been doing this, give or take. Anyway. So yeah, I've never heard of a triangled head alien. So I'm not sure. Don't hate me for this, Anthony. I mean, if it was in your dream, is it possible that it was just a dream? You may have seen something, on TV that might have made you think about it. I don't mean. I know that sounds really rude. I'm just throwing that out there because I've never heard of a triangle. Ra is right. The Anunnaki are fallen angels, not aliens from another planet. Ra, you follow me? Would you like to have a chat? Would you like to come up and chat with me, Ra? Would you like to do that? Now, let me just warn you, I am the foremost expert. I have proven the things that I'm going to be saying to you. You will not be able to prove anything that you've just said there. So, probably not worth you coming up because it'll be a car crash. And I know you follow me, but there's no point in following me and making up rubbish which you've done. So let me just explain why that's rubbish. Where you wrote the Anunnaki, the fallen angels. Okay, so Anunnaki is the elder Anunnaki, the elder Dingir. Their race name is called Dingir, which translates to gods. So the Anunnaki is the group of the elder ones. The Ajiji are the younger Anunnaki. 200 of the younger ones, if you know anything about the Bible, you'll know it says the sons of God, which, if you depending on which way you translate that, Elohim plural, the sons of God or gods, which again, Dingir is like we are human and humans. Dingir is exactly the same, but we translate that to gods. Let me see if that's you want to come up. No, it's not. What a shame. So the other problem is, so first of all, the Ajiji were the fallen angels, not the Anunnaki, because if you know anything about the Bible, you'd read it properly where it says the sons of God. And so you know that the Anunnaki were gods because their race name is Dingir, which translates as deities, gods. So that's your first problem. And then you said the Anunnaki are fallen angels, not aliens from another planet. So actually, they are actually aliens from another planet. So you would have to prove to me, and I can prove quite easily, and I can go through it all with you with the evidence. You would have to prove to me that these fallen angels are from Earth only. So I can prove to you that they're from another planet, but you will never be able to prove to me that they're from Earth originally, because you won't have no proof. All you'll have is the Bible, and which basically says the sons of God took unto them the daughters of man because they saw that they were fair. And these basically 200 of these Igigi out of the 300, they were on the away station on Mars, which is why they came down and took the women. So unfortunately, what you said was incorrect. I don't mean to sound rude, but where you've tried to tell me that's the case, it's not. So if you would like the evidence that why they're aliens on another planet, you can either watch my amazing documentaries, just go to my website, scroll down on the homepage, because I made it so easy for people like you to understand. Scroll down on the homepage where it says click here. It will take you to YouTube. Sit back, watch that, come back. No one's ever come back and said, wow, you're amazing, because those people that I point to that documentary are the sort of people that have just been told that they were wrong and they won't go and watch it because basically they want their version to be correct. So forgive me for sounding patronising. It's just you did come out with something that was just incorrect. Or you can ask me about the evidence for them being aliens from another planet. Jane had wrote to Ra, are you sure about that? Because obviously Jane, I know where Jane's going with this. I was expecting Jane to say something. Spooky has wrote, good evening. Oh, good evening, Spooky Ang. I don't know how you would pronounce that. A-N-G-E. Forgive me if I will cock that out because I can't pronounce things. But thank you and welcome. History and Coins had said to Ra, that's your belief. We have proof of what our truth is shown. Yeah, we do. Obviously, he won't have proof that they belong to Earth. It's a shame, when you got someone that follows me. I don't know whether they've only just started following me, but when you got someone that follows me that says something incorrect, it makes me sad, because it's not only it does come across that they're challenging me, which I enjoy a good challenge, as you know, but it also means that they haven't grasped anything yet. They've probably listened to Billy Carson or someone. Oh dear. Z has wrote, interesting. Thank you very much, Z. Don't forget, anything that I'm talking about has got documentary. I've got thousands of documentaries now on my website, all done by me. Solved so many things. Just go to watch the long documentaries. You'll enjoy them. If you're new to me, just scroll down on the homepage. Forget the video section, which has got Christ knows how many content there. Just if you're new, I would like you to see the evidence that the Anunnaki were here and were from another planet and were real. So scroll down on the home page to where it says click here, because once you watch that, then when you go to the other videos that I've done with the Norse gods and the Greek gods and the Roman gods, etc., you'll go, yeah, totally makes sense now. Trust me, you watch that and you'll see it all fall into place. Nicole's wrote, do you think Anunnaki were afraid of spirits, ghosts? I do not. No. Interesting question. I'm not quite sure why you asked that, but no. Especially if you look at the actual human Sumerians, when they're talking about ghosts and stuff, they kind of got annoyed with them. So Irving Finkel's done that book, where if you read the book, and he's the head curator of the British Museum that's read Sumerian tablets, not just with the Anunnaki, but normal Sumerian people back then, they used to get annoyed with the ghosts. They would see them as if they were in the room. So spirits. So if they had, knew what to do and how to bury the people and stuff like that, they even had cutlery, like cups, that they would, out of pottery, they would make, and they would put the deceased person's name on it, knowing that the deceased persons could come up into their kitchen, and so they actually had cups for the deceased person to even though they know they physically wouldn't be able to drink it, but they would do that so that, hey, I'm ready for you, come up. So yeah, they was more annoyed by, well, the Sumerian people were more annoyed by the spirits. So if we say that that's the sort of case now, why they could see them and we can't now, is it something in the water, fluoride? Is it something in the air, aluminum? Is it yeah? Is it anything to do with all that kind of stuff, sugar, whatever it is? I don't know. But clearly they, from the tablets that Irving Finkel's read and translated and put out in his book, they saw them. There's no ifs or buts. It's not like, oh, did I see someone out the corner of my eye? No, they saw them. They saw their loved ones, and the ones that they wanted to contact that they couldn't, that didn't come up, they would do the necromancy, where they would get the skull of the person, they'd dig the skull up and light a candle inside and do a incantation and so on. So yeah, so I wouldn't say they were afraid of them. If anything, if we go by the Sumerian people, they could have been more annoyed by them. Thank you, whatever that was. I missed it. Sorry, I was just closing my eyes for a second. Anthony's wrote, when I was dreaming about the being, I was in a big, massive room. Yeah, the problem is, I mean, when you say triangle head, I mean, the Greys do seem to have a triangle-shaped head compared to ours. I don't know, maybe, let me know if that's what you're talking about. It's the only one I can think of with triangle head. Buddies wrote, data collection you just described. Unfortunately, I'm slightly behind on the messages, so I can't. If I was more than likely about the spirits and the orbs, I guess. Forgive me, buddy. I can't remember what I was talking about at that point. D-Boys joined and wrote, Baran sure fits Eden's location. Thoughts, freshwater springs referred to as a holy place. So basically, the word Eden really means pleasurable place, but there was 2 Edens. If you know how to read the Bible, it says that they were upset that they were taken from their first home, and they were then in a garden. So that wasn't the first garden. And then it talks about 24 years, and that the lights were always on, and that they didn't need clothes until they went down to the second garden, which was Enki's garden. He had a cherubim, which was a sentry gun, guarding his garden. So, and there was waterways back then, but you've got to remember this is 100,000 years ago when he had these children, Adam and Eve, with the Homo sapiens that they'd already created 200,000 years before. So the waterways now are not the same waterways where they were. We've got Enki's place. We found it. ProjectGutenberg.org. Teams of scientists, etc. They described the building that Enki had, the size of it, how many rooms it had, blah blah blah. So we found his garden, but where the rivers are, obviously because of the Great Flood, it's changed the 4 rivers that we would have expected to have seen just outside of Enki's building. And bearing in mind, Enki's building is underground, so they've had to use LiDAR, etc. So it's buried, basically. So there was 2 Gardens of Eden. One was on a spaceship, which is where one of the Anunnaki tells, which the Anunnaki call people they don't like serpents, snakes, monsters. Yeah. So one of the Anunnaki tells Eve to eat the fruit that was on the spaceship that was from their home planet. Enki warned them, don't eat that because it might be bad for you, it might kill you. In other words, it's not it's not from Earth. So in other words, he didn't know what damage it might do to him, which makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. But of course, Eve got persuaded to eat the fruit off of this particular tree that's in this garden that's always got the lights on, and then was sent because the Anunnaki that told them to do that, the serpent, wanted them to die. And so if they ate the fruit and died, fine. Because you got to remember, this is their whole thing about inbreeding and everything was because they wanted to keep their bloodline pure. Which is why we get kings and queens that try and, throughout history trying to breed with each other and stuff. That was because of the Anunnaki. So when you have Enki breeding with Homo sapiens, which created the Homo sapiens sapiens, Adam and Eve, Adapa and Tai, the Anunnaki didn't like the idea of Anunnaki having physically now a real offspring, which is the Homo sapiens sapiens, the smarter ones as well. They were smarter. We know that because of the tablet called the Tale of Adapa. So they were smarter. The Homo sapiens sapiens were smarter. Modern man, smarter. And so they were put on the spaceship for the first 24 years of their life. This Anunnaki wanted them dead because he didn't like the idea that they were. Anyway, long story short, they ate it, didn't die. And so Enki, he thought Enki would kill them because he said, he'll kill them if they eat from that tree, and of course they did. But Enki didn't. He sent them down to his garden, which is, if you read the Bible, it's there. In fact, I've got a new book coming out called The Bible Rewritten, OTH Bible Rewritten, which covers all of this. So you don't, you can just read that and go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I'm going through it line by line of what the Bible says and what actually happened. And so they went down to the second garden, which, again, read the Bible, it just says, we were basically booted out of our first home and we were sad. And now we're in another garden. And of course, they found that it was cold there. So that's when they got the coat from Enki, which was Jehovah. That's when they got clothes. Not for the first 24 years of their life on a craft. They didn't need it. It's all there in black and white. I'm not making this up. It's just don't know how to read it. And of course, when it got dark, if you know how to read the Bible, they're like, hang on a minute, it's getting dark. And Enki says, don't worry, it'll come back round again. It's only temporary. Because they weren't used to the lights being turned off. In other words, sun going down. It's all there. All there. Piece of cake. In fact, the Anunnaki liked pieces of cake. In fact, the God in the Bible liked cake as well. Anthony wrote, it came down on a silvery egg-shaped seat from the ceiling of the room in the right-hand corner. That's interesting. I mean, there are plenty of stories. In fact, there's even footage of an egg-shaped craft. Remy, the police officer, Remy Lemures, saw the an egg-shaped craft as well. So, an egg-shaped craft is something that people have seen. So, yes. Normally, I don't know. I can't say that they're all white or particular color, but that's interesting. Thank you for that. Yeah. Spooky Ages wrote, from research I can only find we do leave an energy which enters the atmosphere, but nothing further. Well, I mean, if you just listen to, for example, Samantha earlier, where she said I think it was a nan aunt died, and she saw an orb. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, if people could see the orbs leaving people's bodies there and then hospitals would be full of stories of these orbs leaving. But there is cases. For example, there's a tribe in Africa that plays a certain tune on a drum, certain banging, humming, and the orb leaves the person's head, literally comes out of the head, and then they asked it questions, and it moves up and down as a yes and no answer. So if you believe that, then the orbs are there. It's just, whether they make themselves visible or invisible to us, I don't know whether that's a possibility, but I mean, really what we need, it's horrible and morbid, but really what we need is certain sort of types of cameras that can pick up orbs in hospital rooms, in hospices. It's a horrible thing, but that's really what they need. They need the Type 4 night vision military camera there, and as soon as someone dies, you'll see the orb leave the body. That's what we need. Whether or not anyone's ever going to do that or not, I don't know, but that's the way to solve that, I think. D-Boy's right. It was referred to as Dilmun Dil for short, i.e. thoughts on the Bahrain being Eden. Yeah, Dilmun was a place. In fact, I think Noah was given Dilmun for a period of time. But no, it was definitely Enki's garden, because Dilmun is a huge area, and it wouldn't have had a sentry gun. It wouldn't have had a cherubim, which is a sentry gun there. So you know, it, it was there was a gate basically on Enki's garden, so it was fenced in as opposed to it being a whole continent or a whole location like Dillman. But I understand why you're saying that. But yeah, everything. If you watch I've got 3 documentaries on Adam and Eve or the Garden of Eden. So one's called Garden of Eden, which pinpoints where the garden is on Earth. But while I was doing that research, I realised, that that's the second garden. So then I did a second video, which shows that Adam and Eve was on the spaceship for the first 24 years of their life. And then the third one is about Lilith, because as I was doing that research, I kept coming up with the name Lilith, which basically ended up being the very first Homo sapien female, not Homo sapien sapien female, which was Tiamat, Tai. History and Coins wrote that's quite common. I can't remember what I was talking about. But D-Boys wrote also quad the gate and the 7 gates to go into Abzu or inner Earth has in poem this buried craft. I'm not quite sure what that part's referring to. I know what the 7 gates is. It's the descent of Inanna, which is, when you say the gates of hell, that's what it's actually referring to. So there was a place. Feel free to watch my video if you haven't already done so, called Hell Solved. And you'll find it was a place over in Africa where Ereshkigal and Nergal was. He was there 6 months of the year as the god of the underworld, and he had the 3-headed dog. So when you're saying also quad at the gates, I'm not sure what quad is. I'm guessing guard at the gates to go into Abzu and the inner Earth. Yeah, I mean, technically it's not the inner Earth. It would have been more than likely inside a mountain, because we've got a tablet with Enki going there, and he had to go on a boat, which obviously there would have been a ferryman doing that, and the boat was quite rough. He thought it was going to fall out in the tablet, so that's where you get the story of the ferryman, and you have to pay to cross. So yeah, all interesting. Scrolling down, Anthony wrote, do you know what the triangle-headed beings are called? Unfortunately, the only ones I can think of is the Greys. I've never ever heard of a triangle-headed being other than that. Sorry, Anthony, I can't answer that. Other than that, those type. D-Boys wrote opinion on when it went from worship of them to worship of sun and why. It's a really clever question, actually. Well done. Go number 1 in the class. I like that. So basically, the Anunnaki, when they weren't around, they needed their image of them. That's why you were in a certain area. In fact, even in the Bible, it says, Jehovah says, "Don't make any more images of me." But later on, Yahweh says, "Don't make any more images of anyone else." So, in other words, there's more than one God. But they had these images of them, so you would know who they were. Enki had a certain pose. Enlil had a pose. Ishtar had a pose. They all had poses, and if they didn't have the pose, if there wasn't enough room, like on a cylinder sill, which is only like 2 inches tall, if they didn't have enough room, then you would have their symbols. So Inanna, I think, was the eight-sided star. Enki was the fish, and then you have Nana as the half moon, and so on. And even their planet symbol was the winged disc. So, and Ra, when in Egypt, was the sun, and so on. So that's kind of why people worshipping the moon, worshipping the sun, worshipping the storm. Adad was a storm god, and so on. So they had their own, which is what which is what pagan gods are. There's the same bloody gods all over the world. I don't know why people can't work that one out. Just look at what they did, the pagan gods, in terms of nature, and what they're all the same as the Anunnaki gods, which predate the sort of pagan gods around the world. So yeah, really, they was just worshipping the same person, but as a symbol, as opposed to the actual person. So it's the same thing, really. That's all it really was. Marduk was, as you know, the sun god Ra, but he's also ended up being Aten when he was banished and then came back. He became Aten, which was the sun god, which is why Marduk's on the dollar bill as the eye of in the pyramid, not the eye of Horus. Horus was just a demigod that came and went. He's dead now, but Marduk was more than likely still alive. So yeah, that's the reason why. It was a good question. Very good question. Scrolling down, Wonder Woman has wrote, "Good to hear your voice. Love your work. Love listening to you. Thank you, Giselle. Thank you very much, Wonder Woman." It's very. Those are the comments that keep me going. Really is, even if TikTok limits me, which they do. That's the sort of comments I like. Not because it makes me big-headed or anything. It just means that someone's interested in what I'm saying. So thank you very much, Wonder Woman. D Boys wrote, "Every cross symbol is solar lunar alignment." Thank you, JT. Thank you very much. Every cross symbol is solar lunar alignment. Now there is many different types of cross symbols. You've got ones that's upside down, whether like a Jesus Christ cross where it's upside down. You've got ones where it's literally straight across the middle. Then you've got ones like the Jesus Christ cross where it's a line at the top. So I wouldn't say all of them are the solar, because each symbol is a different thing. So I wouldn't say all of the cross symbols are solar lunar alignment. Monnier wrote, "They were guardians of the underworld. What were the heart scarab used for?" I'm not sure when you said they were the guardians of the underworld. I mean, obviously the goddess and god of the underworld was Ereshkigal and Nergal. But what was the scarab used for? So when I first started doing these TikTok videos, my thoughts on the scarab was to do with the levitation that they actually produce. So I don't know if you guys know, but their wings, underneath their wings, they've got millions of these tiny little cones, and these cones produce, even when not touched, they produce lift. So you can actually buy a pack of scarab wings, genuine scarab wings, put them together, pick them up with tweezers, and throw them on top of another scarab wing, and it levitates like magic. It's not static electricity. It's not. There was a Russian guy called Victor. I will not try and pronounce his name, and when I say Victor, it's VIK OR or something. I can't pronounce his surname. There's a video of him online many years ago, black and white footage, and he supposedly managed to get this scarab beetle wings at the bottom of this, dare I say it, skateboard without wheels, and he could literally hover off the ground using the scarab beetle wings. Now, whether or not that's true, but they certainly do hover. That's not made up. That they definitely do that. So, was the scarab beetle used for that because of its, revered because of its ability for levitation? And did the Anunnaki learn anything from the scarab beetle, and therefore that's the reason? I don't know. My original thought was yes, that's probably why. But when you look at what else they've mummified and carved and all these sorts of things, you start thinking, well, maybe it's not really. Maybe there was just more scarab beetles around than not, or maybe they were scarce and they found them interesting. So I don't know. Make your own mind up on that. I can't answer it, I'm afraid, but it's a good question. Go number 3 in the cast. A lot of good questions today. Anthony's wrote, "Yes, that's right, mate. I can't remember what I was talking about. I'm slightly behind." Natural Mystic has put a heart and an eye and a sort of hands together. Thank you very much, Natural Mystic. Bless you. Thank you. History and Coins wrote, because the best of us are here. That's probably why I'm getting so many good questions. Yes. Enoch wrote, been a minute. Hi, Enoch. Nice of you to join again. Yes, I haven't been on, and when I do come on, TikTok normally limits me, which the maximum we've had for the last year is about 40 people. It goes up to 50, but ends up back at 40. That's the maximum, so I think we're still at that, which is good. I mean, it's bad, but good. Z has wrote, thank you too. Oh, you're more than welcome, Z. Thank you. Enoch wrote, the Big Bang happens in the womb. The Big Bang happens in the womb. So basically the reason why the Big Bang is a theory is because what they call the red shade, where they look using telescopes under a certain frequency of radio, in other words, colours that we can't see with the naked eye, and the darker red, the further away something is, and they believe that the universe is expanding. In which case, Stephen Hawking said, well, hang on, if it's expanding, let's rewind it. What will happen? It goes back to a singularity. Goes back to a tiny little bloody point. And that singularity is what people then started saying, well, hang on a minute, how do you get a singularity if you don't have any objects to suddenly create a singularity? And so they come up with the idea that two particles smash together, in which case that's what created the Big Bang. So there's no sort of definitive Big Bang. I mean, it could well have been, another universe could have had people like us with a hadron collider bashing particles together and created a mini universe, which is where I actually genuinely believe our universe come from. How their universe started, I have no idea, but I think that's how ours started, because it gives us everything we need. It gives us how our universe started, particles smashed together, creator of everything. Yes, the guy in the white coat with their hadron collider, and would the universe be expanding? Well, yes, because it would have started from a singularity. So it makes a lot more sense than anything else, in my opinion. And of course, we're trying that. So we're trying to create the God particles with our own hadron colliders. Who's to say we haven't already created a mini universe? I mean, to inside it, they wouldn't know it's mini, but to the people outside, it would be a mini universe. So, Z is right. I thank you. What a great live. Oh, you're more than welcome. I have got previous lives on my website and on YouTube, etc. If you ever want to listen to the previous ones. I'll put this one up on YouTube, I think, because there's a lot of some brilliant questions. History and Coins. I'll stay for now. I need more sleep, but I've missed everyone. Oh, History, I'm sorry. It's because I've been working on the movie Anunnaki feature film and the book Bible Rewritten, which everyone should. I'm not doing it for money. It's just the last thing I'd do it for. But everyone should read it, because then it just everyone understands what actually happened in the Bible. All this other stuff is just ridiculous that's in the Bible that people come out with. Religious people shoehorning their own ideas in, when I've got, I've done books and documentaries with the evidence. So this Bible Rewritten is the closest you'll ever get to what actually happened. So I apologise for not being around, because I've been doing that, but I'd love to finish it tomorrow. D Boys wrote, are we deep enough in Eridu supposed be a way to spring? Scrolling down, see if there's more to it. Are we deep enough in Eridu supposed be way to a spring? So I think I know what you're saying. It's basically, Eridu was the very first place. It was where the Anunnaki set up their first base, the 50 of them that came down, plus Alula that was already here. So Eridu, which was at the bottom of the Persian Gulf, was the first place that they set up. Now, that was 444, give or take, 1,000 years ago. The Great Flood was about 12,000 years ago, 10,000 BC-ish. And so when the Great Flood happened, It was the ice shelf that broke off of Antarctica, slid into the water, which is why Africa and the Middle East got covered in 70 miles inland of sand, sediment, etc. That's a fact. Whereas obviously America didn't really get that kind of thing because the tsunami didn't quite reach America as bad as it would have Africa and everything, because when you look at where Oxford University says the actual ice came from, it directly, the next place after Antarctica where the ice shelf would have fell off is, yes, you guessed it, the Middle East and Africa. So that's the reason why that. So Eridu would have been buried. So the chances that the garden that we're looking at now for Enki is possibly either been rebuilt, or he may have been lucky and it was higher ground, and when the water receded, he ended up with his building back again. I can't say, but we do know that he had a building in Eridu. We found that as I say, Project Gutenberg's found it. So we can certainly say he had a building there and with a walled garden, which is exactly what the Bible says. But whether it's identical to the same one, whether it's in exactly the same place, I can't say. But he certainly had one there, which proves enough that he would have sent the Adam and Eve would have been sent down from the spaceship to his garden as the second home. So in terms of springs, the building that's there now is already buried. So was that the building that Adam and Eve went to, and he didn't rebuild another one after it? It's hard to know. But yeah, it's a fair question. Alive as wrote military officer. Oh, so that was referring to when you said about your someone that you knew's son was a military officer for the Roswell crash. I wonder whether or not he was allowed to talk, whether or not he did talk. That's Jesse's son. Oh, right, okay. Oh, yes, I know of Jesse's son. Yeah, Jesse Marcel's son. Yeah, he has spoken about it. Oh, right, I wasn't sure. You say you know Jesse's son. I think you said, right, yeah, no, I know. Jesse's done many interviews. Jesse's son's done many interviews and explained about the material that his dad had brought back from the crash and stuff like that. So, yes, fully aware of that. But I didn't know, if you knew his son, that's quite amazing. That's really cool. Alive is right. I bought his book at the museum in Roswell. It was the 60th anniversary of the crash. Yeah, it's good that he was talking about it, because it helps collaborate with the nurse and the doctor and everything else that also came forward and said about the alien body, etc. Which is great. Well done. Cool. D Boys wrote, it's to take our eyes off what's really going on. So this is referring to, I'm guessing, when someone asked me why now with the disclosure, and what you're saying is it's to take our eyes off really what's going on. The problem with that, and I understand what you're saying, I'm not knocking you, I think it's a very fair point. The problem with that is there's probably only probably 5% of the planet that's actually interested in it enough to carry on looking at that subject. There's my daughter, example, today I was like, they're talking about the disclosure, and she's like, what? Just not interested, doesn't care, and doesn't. So, what I'm saying is where you're saying that's to distract us. There's so many people out there that are distracted already, and don't even know about anything. So it's not. I personally wouldn't say it's to distract us as a global thing. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, they do these type of things to distract us. But I think that's not, people's mindset on it isn't focused enough. Personally, D-Boy's right. I asked about the Bahrain Cup because it's described as Dilmun were holy place, no sickness, fresh water spring. Yeah, like I say, Dilmun was one of the. So if you go to Oxford University website and where the Sumerian tablets, just type in Dilmun, you'll see it was one of the holy places. They had a shrine there and stuff. So, yeah, it was, and I think, as I say, Noah, I think, was there for a period of time as well, before he moved on. So yes, I can see where you thought that. Paul was wrote Happy Saturday. Thank you, Paul. Welcome. Deep Boys wrote, well, see a bright star in the Seven Sister area. Fire in the sky makes the. See in the next part of that. Makes the binoma. I've never heard of the word binoma. Jane has given me a time check 9:30. Thank you. I'm slightly behind. I'll try and catch up. Thank you, Jane. Goddess Jane. D Boys wrote Homo erectus. Not sure what I was talking about for Homo erectus. I don't recall mentioning Homo erectus today. I mentioned Neanderthal, because we have Neanderthal DNA in us. All of us do. So, and that's that's all of us, not just white people or even African people do, which has been proven by Princeton University. So, we did breed. We would have bred with Homo erectus. So there are people out there that would have had, descendants that were part Homo erectus, but it's the Neanderthal that the Anunnaki used to create the new species. Scrolling down. This is live. I read every single question out. D Boys wrote, thought on the universe being conch. My phone acting up, sorry. No, at all. I'm guessing that's conscious. Thoughts on the universe being conscious. It's an interesting one. Anyone remember King Monkey, where I think the universe was created from a thought? In one of the translations, the Emerald Tablets, the universe was created from a thought. But my movies that I direct is created from a thought. At what point does it become, a thought or a thought that's acted upon? So, for example, if we go with the idea that the universe was created by a guy in a white coat on another universe with a hadron collider bashing particles together and creates a mini universe in their universe, but it's massive to us. If we're inside that mini universe, we wouldn't know any different. Was that a thought of theirs by, hey, let's create a particle smasher? And so technically it was created by a thought, if we go along with that. Or is it a thought that is, we're inside a brain and this is just one thought that's just running on its own? Can't answer that. My gut feeling is we are, from everything I've kind of listened to with people like Linda Moulton Howe talking to military people and all this kind of stuff, I do think we are in a universe that was created by another being. That's my gut feeling. Nicole's wrote, what can you say is the biggest evidence that we have that the Anunnaki are real for new people? Interesting question. I think someone else has asked me that before. So, the ancient tablet called Atrahasis, literally, I mean, you've got many of them, such as the tablet Frankie and Nimna, but literally it tells us everything we ever need to know. So it's not actually one tablet. The Atrahasis is made up of, it's called the Epic of Atrahasis, and the reason why it's an epic is where many stories are collated together and someone's made a book from it. So, the Odyssey, for example, or the Epic of Gilgamesh. So anyway, so the Atrahasis predates the Bible. Even the individual tablets predate the Bible. And in that, they're talking about genetically modifying a species. There's no way on this planet anyone should be talking about genetically modifying a species. And there's even Moses in the Bible says to Jehovah, which was Enki, you created us. I mean, who writes that? No one. In the Atrahasis, they talk about the Great Flood and how it's going to happen. And in fact, in the Atrahasis, it talks about the day of the Great Flood as well. Penn Museum's got that particular tablet. Tells you what happens on the day of the Great Flood. So that's the first few points. Then obviously you've got the Enuma Elish, which explains about the start of our solar system, which has now been backed up by mainstream. The fact that water and it does seem some sort of dust forms and creates the sun, or more than one sun, creates planets, etc. And they've seen that. So it's not our water, it's, as they call it, heavy water. And they've seen that happening in another solar system where a planet is forming from the water in that solar system. So the Enuma Elish literally tells us that. The Bible tells us that the water's mingled, and that's when we get the start of our solar system, not the universe, start of our solar system. And so the Enuma Elish literally tells us exactly the same thing. In fact, the Norse gods tell us the same thing. They tell us that I can't remember the names. I can't remember the Norse names. Watch my Norse documentaries on the frost giant, and it tells us that the planet Tiamat was created. And in fact, the Enuma Elish tells us that the planet Tiamat breaks up and becomes the asteroid belt and Earth. And mainstream say that a planet called Theia, at exactly the same time that the Enuma Elish tells us, 4.6 billion years ago, that Earth was smashed into and became Earth. Whereas mainstream say that Theia, an unknown planet, suddenly, or the size of I think it was the size of Jupiter, or the size of the size of, I can't remember if they said it was the size of the moon. I think they said it was the size of the moon or Mars, one of those two, forgive me. But they say, this is what mainstream say, it makes you laugh, doesn't it? Mainstream say that Earth was just forming, it was hot and molten, and it was smashed into by this rogue planet the size of either Mars or the moon. I think it was Mars. And somehow, wait for it, this is how stupid mainstream is. Somehow it buried itself into our core, towards the core. They've got scans of different material inside huge areas of this different material inside our crust. Now, how the hell can they find that? They don't know. They do it by sound, and they hear a ping, and they don't know how far down it is. They're making up crap. Anyway, so they say that happened, and then part of Earth flew off and became the moon, which is why the moon's got a lot of the same material as Earth. So you think, okay, all right, we could just about squeeze that one and possibly believe it. But then, if it was molten, and we're forming like a normal planet, why aren't we 100% round? And if you want to see the evidence that we're not 100% round, wait for my new documentary to come out in about 4 days' time, called Globe, Earth, or ... So yeah, but this is what makes you laugh. We've got mainstream also saying that when Earth was very first here, it was a snowball Earth. It was ice. The whole planet was covered in ice. But hang on a minute, wasn't we molten hot? Well, yes, we was, but we was also at exactly the same time frozen. How's that work? Well, turns out if you go with the Enuma Elish and the Norse stories, go watch my Frost Giant documentary, that the Tiamat was a frost planet and not an ice planet, which makes sense. And so the Norse called it the Frost Giant. And that got smashed into by these celestial objects, 4 of them smashed into Tiamat, and then eventually Nibiru came back round and smashed into it and broke it up finally. But these 4 objects, one of them buried itself. In fact, it does say it in the Enuma Elish. In fact, if you know about the Norse stories, it talks about the 4 worms. Of course, they were actually called winds in the Enuma Elish. So, in other words, the Norse has got it ever so slightly wrong. It's not his fault. It doesn't know. It's not as good as me. So anyway, so basically we had a foreign object smash into Tiamat, which got lodged into its belly. That's according to the Enuma Elish. And so when the Tiamat finally did break up, part of it became Earth. Now, could those, if we do believe mainstream that there is a foreign object or foreign objects, the 2 of them, big lumps inside Earth under the crust, deep down, could that have been actually one of the moon, or one of the objects that smashed into Tiamat that was traveling with Nibiru? It wasn't a moon of Nibiru's. It seems to be sort of grabbed in its orbit as it was first coming into our solar system. So technically, it was a moon for a very, very short space of time. So that's so okay. So how could we prove that the Anunnaki were here? Well, first of all, I've got a documentary on my website, it's on YouTube, that goes through all of the processes. So it's a 3-hour documentary, which obviously, if you're trying to persuade someone new that they were here, that's difficult to do for them to bother watching a 3-hour documentary, no matter how good it is. So the first thing you would do is say, okay, have we got any evidence of them, e.g., someone talking about them? Yes, we've got millions of tablets. We've got different cultures talking about the same gods. Have we got any buildings for the same people? Because if there's no buildings, then it's just stories. Well, yes, we've got all the old buildings for any of the gods before you had Yahweh's building, which again he came along. That building's only 1,000 years old. The first one for the god, which is basically Marduk when he was monotheistic. So we've got buildings now. Were those buildings of high quality? In other words, have we deteriorated in the technology from the time that they were around? Those buildings way back, being the first buildings ever on this planet. Yes, those buildings were amazing. Even leading up to the pyramids, which was after the Great Flood, but I'm on about way back. We've got some amazing buildings that still standing. So can we do that today? Probably not. Some of those buildings we can't do. We can't even figure out how they built them, let alone. So there's some of the things I would say. But obviously, when they talk about genetics, they even tell us that they limited our life to 120 years. Now, you could say, well, hang on a minute, we don't live to 120 years, but there are people that could have lived to 120 years after the Great Flood if we didn't eat the crap that we eat now, and then breathing in the oxygen that we breathe in now. When I say oxygen, I'm on about aeroplanes and chemtrails and pharmaceuticals stabbing us with stuff. You'll find that certain countries where they live longer don't have the same interference that we have here. So after the Great Flood, people could have lived to 120 years, but as it seems that as we're moving on, 80, 90 if we're lucky. I mean, what do you call it? So David Attenborough just turned 100, bless him. 120 years, when the Anunnaki say 120 years is their max, isn't far off, really, if you look at in terms of back then without the food that we eat now. So when you've got someone telling us that they limited us to 120 years, and they also limited us by RH negative. Now, again, I was going through that today with the Archahasas, where they was talking about limiting us. They said 1/4. Was it 3/4? 3/4 or 1/4? I think it was 1/4. Forgive me, I can't remember. It was 3/4, 1/4. But they said 1/4, probably 1/4. 1/4 was something, I can't remember the exact thing. Another 1/4 was blah blah blah, and then the last 1/4, they said that they would do something to the womb to make it barren. So that would explain why we only have 15% supposedly of RH negative people, because if they didn't do it to everyone to start with, in other words, if they didn't make the very first, after the Great Flood when they recreated us, if they didn't give that very first female the RH neg, but they allowed populations to grow, and then gave 1/4 the RH negative to reduce population, which is exactly what it says, then how the hell can people be talking about reducing population by doing something to them? And also in the Archahasas, they're talking about a disease, actually setting off a disease. So, you're talking about technologies that shouldn't be mentioned in ancient tablets. It is literally technologies that shouldn't be mentioned. And I defy anyone to turn around and say, oh, well, that's metaphorical that they actually genetically created a new species. Well, yeah, they were just guessing, and they wrote it down. Yeah, they was just guessing, and they told us how many times they fouled creating, and they even told us what was wrong with the six people that they created first that fouled. Yeah, that's just all metaphorical. It's just made up. And then we've got a missing link. Well, yeah, that's true, but yeah, I mean, whoever doesn't catch on to half of that stuff needs their head examined. Numpties is the word I use, Nicole. D Boys wrote, thought on the universe being conscious as above, so below. So it wasn't the universe that's above and so below, it was our solar system. So a lot of people, everyone probably thinks that the Bible is referring to the universe. It's not. It's referring to our solar system, which is why when there's let there be light, it was our sun. Otherwise, it would have been let there be lights. Think about it. There's more than one sun. So, yeah. No, it was our solar system, and but basically above and below was above the asteroid and below the asteroid. So there was water in the asteroid belt because Tiamat, which was the frost planet, got smashed up and became the asteroid belt, and so there was water in the asteroid belt, which is why you hear the words water mixed in with the above and below. That was all it was, and that's what separated the heavens. So it was one heaven was above the asteroid belt, and the other heaven is below the asteroid belt. So it's not the universe; it is literally our solar system. D Boys wrote, Sumerian keep records on everything, so I think tools be wrote down how etc. Foundation library. No, the reason why they gave the master builders the technology is to keep it out of the hands of normal people. That's why there's nothing written down about the pyramids, how they were built. I know people say, oh, there's a bit of papyrus that tells us how it's built. In fact, there was that stupid seriologist, do you remember? Stupid woman that said, we have, wait for it, this is what she said. White people, this is what she said. White people can't understand that black people built the pyramids, and then she says it's our bias, as in the white people's bias, that we can't believe that black people back then would have been building pyramids. Bearing in mind, there's 1,000 pyramids worldwide, and some of those places didn't even have black people. So that shut her up. But the other point was she said was, and we have 100% evidence of how they built them. So I emailed that woman. She's on a thing called Hammurabi. I can't remember what it was. Hammurabi something website. Anyway, so I emailed her, and I did a live while I was or filmed it as I clicked send on my email. She never replied, but she added me to her mailing list. So every now and then I get this freaking Hammurabi crap come through from this woman that made up crap that we don't have evidence of how they built the pyramids. Sorry, I digressed. So yeah, we wouldn't get. That's why we don't have any mention of how the pyramids built or any of these other buildings around the world. You know, the Indian buildings, etc., Greek buildings. We don't have any records of that because that was kept quiet. That's a no-go for normal people. It was master builders that had to give that knowledge and technology to build things, which ended up becoming masons way down the line. But yeah, so we wouldn't see the records of how things were built like that. We'll never see it. D Boys wrote, why 40 day on everything and 40 on walk through cave, Gilgamesh, Noah, etc. When you say why 40 days on everything, it's not. I mean, I could point out the 7 days and also with the Noah story. So it's not. It's just things. So I could point out 12 of things. I could point out all sorts of numbers. So I think it's one of those cases where if you're looking for something, you'll see it. So there isn't 40 days of everything. It's just the things that you've looked at that you think, that 40 and 40. Wow, there's everything's now 40 when there's not. I mean, yeah. Again, if you read the Artrahasas, you'll see that it talks about 7 days to sort the sand out, etc. So there's, not everything's 40. Samantha's wrote egg-shaped craft. Morecambe Mindy, yes, Yeah, sometimes I think some of these old programs did actually know a little bit more or believe a little bit more than what they let on. Um, so I wonder if they got that story. I think Remy Lemura's story was in the 60s. I think Mork Mindy was 70s, so it's totally possible they may have had that same story. Samantha wrote the blue light was golf ball size and got smaller as going through the curtain. Her favourite colour was blue. Interesting, thank you. Golf ball size, yeah, so it's smaller than a tennis ball. Not by much, but smaller than a tennis ball. But thank you, yeah, it's interesting. Um, yeah, I believe that's obviously something to do with your, I think you said aunt. Definitely. Spookies wrote, I believe, it certainly wasn't the basketball size, which is the ones outside, which is what I've said. The small ones are inside. Spookies wrote, I believe, as it's what I research and I've seen orbs myself. Yeah, I haven't seen an orb, so I can't say. I've seen videos of them, but never seen one in real life. D Boys wrote, in your opinion on conflict in Persia and how it's related to Anunnaki and Sun God and World War Three. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't know the answer. I think something's changed with the power shift of who's in charge. I have a gut feeling, and I hope I'm wrong, but uh, I think I'm. I hate to think that I'm right. Where for example, Nana Singh might now be in charge. So something may have happened to Marduk and Nana Singh instead of Nabu, which was Enki's son. I don't know why, but the reason why I think something's happened is because um, Nana was the um, crescent moon that you'll see on flags, and certain religions have, and certain countries in that area had half crescent moon as their symbol, along with a star. Inanna was the eight-pointed star, and I'm not sure what her sister was, or whether there was another child that they may have had that wasn't mentioned, that may be another star. So if you start thinking about Turkey, etc., with the flag and stuff like that, is there a power shift? Because Marduk's people were basically Christians. They didn't even know that they were worshipping Marduk, but that's what they were. Catholics were worshipping the pantheon of Enlil, so the gods, until Marduk changed and went over to Rome and said, "Wait, stop!" And then the pantheon suddenly disappeared of Enlil's family. But now there seems to be a power shift pushing a certain um, flagged agenda, and so I'm praying I'm wrong, but I don't know. D Boys wrote, "Are they expecting to be?" I mean, from the calculations, you're looking still at another 5 to 900 years, could be 700. Hard to say because Sitchin believed it was speeding up. So it's for one day, how quick is the speed up? Is it a year? Is it 100 years? I don't know. But so I can't give you. It's not imminent. You've got another couple of 100 years before we even start seeing it. So I think we'll be all enslaved by then. And when I say all, I'm on about the depopulation happening and whoever's left tagged at birth, literally tagged with a chip, and your life isn't your own anymore. That's for sure. You'll own absolutely nothing. Darwin's right. Has anyone seen the film A Sphinx? I think is that how you pronounce it? The spirit is captured at the moment of death. Fascinating. I haven't. No. That's interesting. If you can remind me in the background, I'll try and look out for that one. D Boys wrote, "Are they trying spur prophecy or Anunnaki to intervene? Your thoughts on relationship, if any, conflict? Are they trying spur prophecy?" Um, I don't, I don't know. I mean, obviously, prophecies are just things that they want to happen. In the olden days, in the Bible, it wasn't prophecies. If you look at the prophecies in the Bible, some sort of came true, but they were just things that was planned to happen. So it becomes a self-fulfilled prophecy, because it's like me saying, "Oh, I'm going to prophesize. I'm going to go work on Monday," and I do, and there you go. I'm now a prophet. So and a lot of those prophecies didn't actually come true in the Bible. Even about Jesus, they didn't. So I don't think there's such a thing as a prophecy from the Anunnaki's point of view. That's not to say there isn't, but it's just my gut feeling. Deep Boys wrote, after the flooded kingship ascended from heaven again, but lifespan less, did something happen so the no longer be on surface or in sun or in power? So if we look at it from the Bible point of view, people did still see Enki. Enki did physically see people, and Moses, he was chatting to a hell of a lot. But I think Moses was his son from another human woman. I mean, literally, it's smacks of that. Wait till you read my Bible rewritten book, and you'll see that's what it is. But yeah, the thing was, the Anunnaki never really showed themselves too much to us anyway. They did have intermediates, which you all know as angels, the messengers, and then they had the heralds, which would be the divine people here. So like priests, for example, that would get the messages from the angels, from the messengers. Sometimes the messengers went direct to people, but most of the time it was passed through a chain of sort of command, so to speak. And so after the flood, kind of the same sort of thing. Ijiji did stay around with people, we know that. They literally stayed with their families that they had, human families. But the Anunnaki themselves, they had their buildings and they sort of kept themselves in terms of, they didn't walk down a street or anything like that. Occasionally they did. I mean, there's a tablet where Marduk, when a new king was, this is obviously rolling on after when Marduk became the most high. When someone became a king, he would walk them down the street and hold their hand. Of course, the head curator at the British Museum who reads these tablets said it was a statue. Yeah, right. He goes, oh, they. This is his words as he stutters when he's trying to explain about it, because when he doesn't have to try and lie, he says things 100% smooth, no problems at all. When he lies or when he's trying to avoid telling the truth, you watch him, he stutters. I've seen enough of him now to know that that's exactly what he does. And he goes, "Oh, well, back then they had statues of Marduk, and obviously mythological person, but and they would have been. It would have been a tall statue, because obviously Anunnaki, Marduk would have been tall, but of course, the king would have shook his hand and held his hand, but ignored the fact that they walked down the street together. Yeah, right." So they talk about pick and choose what you want. Come on, Ivan Finkel, don't do that. But of course, let me explain something to you. I applied for a job at the British Museum a few years back. Not that I wanted the job; I was just interested to see how it went. Didn't get the job, and the reason why is because in their application, it asks things like, what did your mother do for work? What did your father do for work? In other words, toffee nose assholes, excuse my language. That has no relevance on my performance, my knowledge, my skills whatsoever, what my parents did. But they wanted the Eton type, they went to college and they did, my dad was a doctor, or my dad was this, or my dad was that. No bearing whatsoever. My dad was a builder. Which, in my opinion, is a skilled job, but obviously people don't see that as a skill. Literally a builder, proper builder. In fact, he had his own company. But that's the kind of mentality the British Museum has. So once you realise that that's a sort of stick it up your ass. Excuse my language. I hate the companies like that, or institutions. Of course, we know the British Museum is partly funded by you know who, and They're the same people that gets funded by the Smithsonian and so on, and the same people that created the Israel Museum that also tried to buy into the Egypt Museum, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you guessed it. Don't trust them. Scrolling down, D Boys wrote, seems they left power after flooded handed demigod or human they were around way much less. Yes. So after the Great Flood, you're right, they decided, long story, but they decided to allow humans to inherit the earth. And so they taught us, which is why everything comes from Sumer. Money, maths, agriculture, you name it, comes from Sumer, which was the first place they started teaching us. So yes, they did, but they used the Magi, which was the demigods, to teach us stuff. So they didn't really want to talk to us ourselves. They didn't like us, unless they fancied one of the women, in which case they would have. But that's not always the case, because Ishtar or Inanna also bedded human men, but they died in the night. So you got to remember, her night is about 30 days, 30 nights. So you wonder why these poor men died. I mean, literally, she bedded these guys, numerous of them. She actually, I think, was it? I can't remember if that was where she would take them from their wedding, before their wedding night, and I can't remember if that was the case. Or am I getting that mixed up with another story? But yeah, so they died in the night. But even at the best night, where Erishkigal and Nergal, they had one night which was 7 days and 7 nights together. That was classed as one night for them, even though it should have been longer. But here on Earth, they would seem to be sort of sleeping for 7 days, 7 nights. Otherwise, it's a waste of being here on Earth working if you're going to sleep, for a whole month. So yeah, these poor guys probably died of exhaustion. Bearing in mind she was probably 16 to 20 foot tall. So yeah, you got your work cut out for you. I'll pass on that one. History and Coins wrote, my dog typed. No worries, there's an M above that. I didn't read the M out, but now I know why. Smart dog. D-Boys wrote, my point is symbol is stars or solar space, etc. That was when I pointed out that you can't really say that everything was to do with the cross was to do with solar or lunar. But yes, I see. Obviously, it's the symbols represent not just celestial objects, but the same. The Anunnaki down here, they wouldn't. There's no point in them putting an image up of Polaris, for example, if it's got no relevance. So yes, it was normally a person that's also referred to as the god of water, the god of thunder, the god of so on and so on. D-Boys wrote, the scallop beetle came from Nibiru, it seems, rolls mud towards home, star, etc. Well, certain animals do use, ants use the sun as a guide. So if you take the sun away, it won't know where to go. So certain animals do use suns, and obviously if an animal's at night, then it will probably use a star, maybe the North Star, as a guiding system, or magnetic poles as well. They do. I can't say that the scarab beetle definitely come from Nibiru. No mention that I've read of it, unless they had a different name for it or something, which is totally possible, but I've never read it. And of course, the Sumerians didn't really deal with the scarab beetles, more Egypt. So I probably wouldn't say that they brought it from Nibiru, but I understand your thoughts on that. D-Boys wrote, bug wings aren't big enough to lift themselves alone. The vibration changes the gravity studies. I'm trying to find the next bit. Just stops. There's no more to that. The bug wings aren't big enough to lift themselves. They do. The scarab beetles can lift themselves. Go look it up online. Have a watch. People's done it. People that was going to try and debunk it have done it, and then you hear the voices like, "Wow, this freaking thing's levitating." So it's not. There's no. And there wasn't no music playing or sound or anything like that. It was just literally a quiet room, He opens this bag of scarab beetle wings because he'd heard that they levitate, tips them on the floor, and then like 2 or 3 of them levitate above the others. It's like, wow, I didn't even need to do anything. Straight away, they're levitating. So they do seem to levitate on their own. Have a look, you'll see. History and Coins, right, I'm going to grab more sleep. No worries at all. Thank you, History and Coins, who's in Australia. Thank you very much for joining in. D-Boys wrote, what do you explain what they do at CERN? I've heard everything. I've heard literally everything from, obviously, the main one was originally creating the God particle, but I've heard they've opened portals, let creatures through, seen prehistoric animals, you name it, I've heard it. So I'm guessing some of those are probably true. I don't know. And then you wrote, did we slip dimension? I've heard that as well. I've heard that the fact that we've got this Mandela effect, and it seems to be that only it started after after the CERN was switched on, in which case did it switch us into a different timeline, and so older people remember things different to younger people because they're now stuck in this new time frame, as opposed to the older people who remember things differently. I've heard it all, so I can't say one way or another. Your guess is as good as mine, really. D-Boys wrote, were we told to build it for? I'm guessing that's going to be for an alien race or something. Well, the Hadron Collider isn't the actual original one. There was one before that. So where they got the idea to do that from, I don't know. Whether or not. So the problem is, it starts rolling back to sort of the Germans, really, when you start researching back to some of the original people. In fact, I think the original one that they created was in Germany. This Hadron, it was a lot smaller. So, was it anything to do with the Aryans? Was it anything to do with Hitler? Was it anything to do with Dracos, Greys, Anunnaki? I can't tell you why. I've never heard anything whatsoever as to anyone saying why they built, other than smashing particles together. So, yeah, I can't answer it, I'm afraid. It's an interesting question, but I can't answer it. Jane's, wow, okay. I keep getting a lot more questions, don't I? Thank you, Jane, for the time check. Nicole's right. A friend of mine asked, how can life form and be sustained on a planet so far from the sun? So basically, there's a thing called thermal energy from within the planet. In fact, I think Sweden or Iceland or somewhere like that actually has it themselves, where they don't need heat. It comes from under the ground. And so NASA says there's planets out there that have this thermal energy that's basically heats the planet up from the inside, which makes a lot of sense. So really that's how it is. But of course, if you break it down and say, okay, let's look at it from a life perspective point of view. So Nibiru came into our solar system around 4.5, 4.6 billion years ago, which is a long time for us. But if you look at it from their point of view, it's only 1 million years. And so could we survive if our planet went to another solar system and ended up with an elongated orbit? Would we be able to survive? Not our planet, we don't have a thermal energy coming up. But if we had a planet that had a thermal energy in the planet, would we be able to survive? And we were smart enough and probably more technologically advanced than we are now, e.g., the Anunnaki when they were on their planet when it entered our solar system 1 million years ago. For them, they were obviously more technologically advanced because they tied the asteroids together to make the hammer bracelet. So they had the ability to fly back then. That was 1 million of our years ago, 1 million of their years ago. So they could quite easily survive. And the journey through the solar system, to get to from deep space to get to us from wherever they came from. So if our nearest is Alpha Centauri, so if they came from Alpha Centauri to here, it would have been about 70 of their years, which isn't that long to survive the journey. And according to scientists, etc., a planet could quite easily do that. In fact, out in the deep space, just recently they found this huge amount of water. If you're interested, go look that up. It's quite fascinating. It's middle of nowhere. There's water, which obviously could, under the right circumstances, if it was moving, create another planet in the middle of, between our solar system and another, which is what happened with our solar system. So yeah, good question. Thank you for that. Sorry, I do close my eyes sometimes and I miss things that pop up, so I apologise. Maria has wrote, "Good evening. Hi Maria, nice of you to join. Hope you're well." JT's wrote, "Have you ever researched Behemoth, the deity of the holy weird elites supposedly worship?" I haven't. And the reason kind of for that is because sorry, I'm just finding a plug to charge my phone. It's on 16%, slow charging. It might die. Let me find another power wire. Sorry guys, talk amongst yourselves. I thought this was going to be a short live. I was all prepared to watch TV after. No, the reason why I don't is because once you get to the elites, when I did look many years ago, I end up finding horrible things with kids and stuff, and I didn't like it, and so I stopped. So I can't answer any questions referring to that because I kind of stopped for those reasons, which is sorry. Shane just wrote, I think on would have be too pretty thick in the head not to think others living beings exist. I think that was referring to when Nicole asked me what would I say if someone asked whether or not Anunnaki were real, and you're saying is basically you'd have to be pretty thick to think that we're the only planet out of Christ knows how many in the whole solar, in the whole universe, that we're suddenly the only one with life. Now, if you go with the Moorhen translations, Nibiru seeded life on, or certainly seeded some life. If you go with the Moorhen translations, and not to say that Tiamat didn't already have life, but if we believe the Moorhen translations, when Nibiru smashed into Tiamat and finally broke it up, it seeded life on Nibiru, which ended up being Earth and the asteroid belt, in which case we probably got the life from Nibiru, which is kind of why the Anunnaki could end up, creating us, bringing their sheep and goat down and all that kind of stuff, because we're all based off of the same genetics, which is why there's a thing called human DNA, which fruit flies have. Well, then how's it human DNA? It's not human DNA. I hate that. Chimpanzees have X amount of percent of human DNA. Yeah, but a freaking water flea has a percentage of human DNA. How's that work? So it's not human DNA. It's a generic. It's basically the starting blocks of where we ended up becoming from. Bananas have it. Rats have them. Human DNA. So you just ignore what mainstream say. Watch my documentaries. Scrolling down. Maria's right. My question is that you said before that Anunnaki aren't from another planet, aliens. Oh no, I've always sorry. And then you wrote underneath that the word universe derives from the Latin universum, meaning the whole world or everything. Okay, so I've never mentioned the universe derives from the Latin universum. I've never mentioned that. And then you wrote, my question is that you said before that the Anunnaki aren't from another planet. I've never said that. Anunnaki are from another planet, but only one planet. So you got people like Billy Carson that says they come from different planets because he's, dare I say it, not very good at what he does, makes up stuff. And he hasn't got any evidence to prove that they come from another planet. we know that they come from Nibiru because they tell us they come from Nibiru. Um, so yeah, they come from another planet. They even had a shrine to Nibiru here on Earth. Kerry's wrote to Maria. He's always said that Anunnaki from Nibiru. Thank you, Kerry. Yes, thank you. D-Boys wrote Tablets of Destiny, a star map. So I did look as best I can on the Tablets of Destiny. I need to do a deep dive on it, a real deep dive. I mean, I've done a deep dive on the MEs, which isn't the Tablets of Destinies, but it's a sort of same sort of thing where you've got a few mentions of something and it's really hard to try and work out what it is. And so the Tablets of Destiny is a really tricky one. So for those of you who don't know, the Tablets of Destiny is something that the Anunnaki literally revered. It seems to be there's only one of them, or one set of them. And when someone like Anzu stole them, the Anunnaki were petrified, and Anzu said that he could just blink. I can't remember if it was blink or whistle or something like that, and make the stars just vanish. So whatever it is, I tried to go down the train of thought because mainstream sort of suggests that it's something to do with celestial mapping, which I could understand why. The problem with that is it? See, the first thing that made me think was, is it a map on how to get through the asteroid belt? Because obviously they did have issues with it, both lots, Alula and so that's my first thought. Was it the asteroid belt, a way to get through it? But the problem with that is, they're not daft. They're really not that daft to only have one set of, and it was kept sort of under lock and key because the tablets tell us that Enlil showed Anzu it in a cave. I think it was in a cave or in somewhere like that, some building that was secure, and Anzu basically stole them, and they were petrified to go after them and get them. So they was like, oh, we can't be defeated now. He's got these tablets. Now, was that because he could destroy them and everyone would be upset, or was it because he now had more power? Was he a bloody god? I don't know. So I need to do a real deep dive to try and work out what that is. So I haven't. That's one thing I've not done yet. So when you say Tablets of Destiny, a star map, you could be right. That's what mainstream go with. But they're not. They could have just duplicated that. They're not thick. They had technology. It's not like, oh, this is our one map that we've got to get somewhere or do something. So I can't imagine it just being as simple as that. D-Boys wrote all these Maget. I'm not sure what that's referring to. If anyone's new here, visit my website. Just click on my profile. You'll see thousands of documentaries with evidence. You'll be blown away. D-Boys wrote all these megaliths. I think it's giants worried about anything coming back watching for a sign. So when you say all these megaliths, obviously, technically Stonehenge would be classed as a megalith structure. Obviously Stonehenge was a calendar. It was definitely designed as a calendar. We've got the what was it? I can't remember what tablet it was that tells us how it was all formed and what the gate, they called them gates. So you think it was giants that built them? So the thing with the giants is technically Anunnaki were giants. We've got doors with 15 foot up. The doors are 20 foot, 23 foot in the Vatican. 15 foot up is where the lock is. I can't reach 15 foot. I'm 6'3". I can't reach 15 foot. So clearly the Anunnaki were giants. So if we're gonna go, even if I'm wrong and they were 8 to 12 foot tall, and the doors were just done for a bit of a giggle, that's still classed as a giant. Thank you, whatever that was. I just literally just missed it. I closed my eyes again. Sorry, but thank you, whoever that was. Sorry, going back to the giants worried. So with the thing is, we do have stories of giants around the world. So it's not like, oh, they're only in the Middle East. But we do have stories of Scotland with giants, Malta, England, Ireland, many, many, many places. So you could say, well, maybe the giants did build these megalithic structures, but there's still a weight issue. So, for example, some of the stones in Stonehenge come from 70 plus miles away, if not further. So a giant decides to, cut the stones, walk with them. Those stones. You think about it, you would need to be a mile high to be able to lift one of those stones. Just because a giant's, 20 foot doesn't mean they could lift a stone like that. I mean, I can't lift. You talk. Let's look at the equivalent. Eddie Hall lifted half a ton, and that was just literally lifting it off the ground for a couple of seconds. So, these stones are more than a few tons. So you'd need to be not only huge, or you could put them on a wheelbarrow and drag them along 70 miles and then put them up and hope that. So I wouldn't have said this. I mean, obviously if we believe the Moorhen translations, which I do, Ninurta went round and built a lot of these megalithic structures because he wanted them as calendars so that they knew that the time of the ram wasn't yet, which the ram would have been Marduk, which is why you have the the three wise men and the coin with the ram. You wonder why it's all there. Go watch my amazing documentaries. Ninurta went round and built these things, and obviously these things have got quartz in them as well, these megalithic structures, which is what has the resonance frequency, and an institution did levitate quartz. So it was because they had quartz in that they could build these structures, including the sandstone, which has also got the pyramids, etc., which has also got quartz in it. So I wouldn't have said giants personally built them because they would have all had to come up with these ideas around the world and thought, do you know what, I'm going to build some Maui statues on this little island, and then someone else must have thought somewhere else, do you know what, I'm going to build this structure in Malta, and someone else must have thought, do you know what, I'm going to. It seems to be more unified than loads of giants individually. I think it's the Anunnaki, basically. Scrolling down, Gabrielle wrote, "Isn't the core is too deep to freeze?" Well, the thing is, mainstream called our core. I'm guessing you're referring to our core as opposed to Nibiru's core. We don't know, obviously, what Nibiru's core is made of, but mainstream said years ago when it was solid iron. That was when I was at school. I remember that. Then, if you look now, it will say, "Oh, it's molten iron." Then, if you look at Hawaii, the Institution of Hawaii, they said no, it's might not be iron after all. And now you've got just in the last year. Now they're saying, well, it's actually probably molten iron on the outer inner core. So they keep changing the goalposts. So if you watch my documentaries, you'll see I've done one on the Earth having as an ice core, which actually fits perfectly because Nibiru was and you could argue, well, hang on a minute, what about the magnetic poles? You can still have the magnetic poles regardless whether it's ice or iron. But Nibiru was an ice planet, so it was formed by water, so that kind of makes sense that you probably might have an ice core at the center. Now, Earth was originally smaller, apparently, according to mainstream, but we've got bigger, but without any extra mass, which is really weird, unless it was the ice in the center that melted and then came up. Now, we do have water from low down coming up. There's a hole in the ocean that's actually letting water up, so they know there's water. And in fact, they found an ocean the size of America underneath the crust as well. So basically, there's water coming up from below, which filled back then Earth up a bit more than what it should have been. So in other words, we now end up with a larger planet without the extra mass. So everything suggests that I'm right on that. Which is probably why it got, I think it melted. So you're right, Gabrielle, to say that, wouldn't it be too hot to freeze? Yeah, it would have been probably ice to start with, but yeah, as time went on, the pressures and everything would have made the water become, the ice become liquid and then seep upwards, which is what it's doing as we speak. Scrolling down, people chatting to each other. People chatting to each other. Sorry. D-Boys wrote, in light of the Anunnaki thought on evolution, is it possible without tech? Well, if you believe the Moorhen translations of which are in Columbia University at the moment, or at least was at one point, tablets, the Anunnaki looked at our primates, which would have been the Neanderthal, and said that's what they were like in the past. So in other words, they even was aware of evolution. Maria's wrote it. I'm guessing that's replying to someone else. People chatting. Sheila has wrote, I really enjoyed listening to you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Oh, you're more than welcome. Thank you, Sheila. So I do enjoy it especially when people are willing to learn and stuff like that. And it does come across big-headed, but I have got the documentaries and the videos and everything, and so far, I mean, I did a documentary just recently on the Three Wise Men, and I can't remember who it was, but someone wrote, "Wow, so much more clearer than what the Bible says." So even if I'm 90% right, it's still probably that's 90% better than what we've got at the moment. From Bibles and what else. D-Boys wrote, who did I'm guessing Sitchin, work for? How was he granted access to the Rothschilds and Morgan private library collection? I don't know if he was. I don't think he was working for anyone. I know people say he was in the Masons, and he possibly was. Doesn't mean he's not allowed to research or didn't. People say, "Oh, Sitchin, the author Sitchin, was a Mason, and therefore what? Maybe the Masons wanted this information out." So I hate the way people put two and two and make five. I know he read a lot of the translated tablets already. He could translate, but the tablets that he said he didn't translate any tablets. He could translate them, but so they were already translated. So I think I don't. I mean, I can't say. I mean, I know the Rothschilds they allowed the Moorhens to translate according to according to the Moorhen stroke. Thank you, Jesse. Stroke Sitchin himself, and obviously if the Rothschilds, didn't allow. Bearing in mind that Rothschilds do have people working in Columbia University, so that's where the tablets are now. So yeah, I don't know if he asked. I can't say whether he asked people to let him read tablets or not. But I know that he has said that the tablets that he, looks at were already translated. So same as me, I can't read Sumerian, but I can read the translations of everyone that's translated all the tablets in the past. So I can't say that he, knocked on Rothschild's door and said, "Let me read," but I know he would have read what the what's the other guy's name? Forgotten his name now. My brain's gone. I can't remember the other ones that I just said. The authors of the translations of the Columbia University. My brain's completely froze there. JT makes sense that Nana is in charge. American entire justice system is off the feminine structure. Well, Nana is actually is a bloke, Nana Singh, but maybe he's batting for the same team. I don't know. Maybe his crescent moon is a rainbow coloured one. I don't know. Or maybe his daughters have said, "Look, Dad, come on, sort this out." I don't know, but yeah. Jane has wrote 10:30. Wow, okay. Thank you, Jane. Time's flying, isn't it? Sean has wrote, so are you an Anunnaki groupie? Oh, sorry, not Sean. Sananda has wrote, so are you an Anunnaki groupie? No, I'm just an amazing world's best researcher, and I say that because I've solved things that no one else has, and I should be knighted for it. It's not going to happen. They'll probably chop my head off instead for solving these things. But you can just go and look at my documentaries and see. Kerry's wrote to Sandan. He's a researcher. I do other things other than research, but yes, thank you, Kerry. And then that numpty Sanandan wrote, like I said, groupie. Yes, I do hang around with the Anunnaki. When they do gigs, I do go along and help them with the equipment. So yes, what a numpty. The moderators have blocked that numpty. You can see why. Not the world's sharpest, are they? Let me read what... right, okay. Right, I know why. So I'm going to read their profile. I am Joshua Sanantada. Mazel... I can never pronounce that name. Melchizedek Kunoshi. So yeah, basically a numpty that has no idea what he's talking about. You're not. JT's wrote, lately I've been a contact law groupie. Okay. Not quite sure where that one's going, but okay. Kerry's told that numpty, not JT, but the other numpty, to hush. That numpty says to Kerry, you better do your research on me, dear soul. Peekaboo. Yeah, numpty. Jane has wrote, and you better incorrect evidence, fact, history, research, not groupies, followers. Moderators, I would have probably blocked that person straight after the first comment, but I'm surprised you guys let that numpty carry on. Scrolling down. Scrolling down, numpty's still waffling on. Here we go. Look, this is why it's an numpty. That's Sanantanda as wrote, accept what's coming for spreading distortion. Numpty. I'm surprised you moderators just didn't cut him off straight away. You know it's a bloke, let's be honest. Living in his mum's basement. Moderators, you're way too kind. I'm still waiting for this person to be blocked. That numpty's wrote, all I'm saying is you better stay authentic with your information or you will be dealt with. Well, the bit of luck is I am probably one of the only few people on this planet that actually sticks to the information regarding this. So I'm fine. Thank you very much for asking. I can't believe you guys haven't blocked this person already. Finally, they blocked him. Samantha wrote, pack it in. Yeah, moderators, just get rid of numps. We don't need them. I'm wasting my time reading it. But thank you anyway for blocking them. JT wrote to that numpty, which deity will deal with us? I'm sure OTH can tell you who they really are. Yeah. when you read their profiles, you kind of know what they're about. Kerry's wrote to Jane, I was having fun with him. Ah, right, that's probably why you didn't block him straight away. You toy with the little mouse. JT's wrote, apparently in the newly declassified UFOs documents, they mention reptilians. Yeah, I'm waiting for it to sort of all come out and then look at it, because I hate looking at, a snippet here and a snippet there, because I then have to remember everything for a week time when they release something else, and I have to say, okay, then what did I hear back then? So I'll try and wait and hold off, and then get it all in one go. But yeah, interesting if they have. I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, when you read the transcript of the President Reagan's debriefing on aliens back in '84, which you can find online, and I do 100% believe it's genuine. They're talking about a name that they called Detranoids or something. No, they're probably not rainbow-coloured aliens. Detranoids, something like that. I can never remember how to pronounce it. But they're talking about an alien race there that is not good, really, really evil and bad. So I wonder if that's the name that you got to remember they called back then. They called the Greys Eben 1 and Eben 2. So they, obviously we've coined the word Greys, but they had their own names back then. So we call the Dracos or the Draconians, the Reptilians, whereas they may have called them the Tranoids because they had a nose pierced and blue hair or something. I don't know, but that's what they called them. That's what they called them, something like that. Scrolling down, I'm only having a laugh. Samantha's right. I will catch the rest of this live. Thank you. It's been so interesting. Night all. Have a good week. Thank you very much, Samantha. I will stick this one on YouTube. It's been lots of good questions. History and Coins has woke back up and said, I'm back for now, for a while. I drink coffee. You missed someone, I'm afraid, History and Coins. I'm sure you would have had fun with them as well. History and Coins wrote, you never have short lives. Yes, because I said, I thought I'd be finished by now. Yeah, I thought I was going to be stuck at 5, but they've allowed me the 30 odd. Thank you, TikTok. I would have preferred my hundreds back, but Saint Tigers wrote, what is the Anunnaki? So it's an alien race from a planet called Nibiru. We've got ancient texts that tell us all of this, so there's not like making it up pulling it out of thin air. It's actually, we've got thousands, millions of tablets, as well as carvings of them, etc. Long story short, is their race name is Dingir, which translates to deities. We call them gods. And they came here and needed gold. Funny enough, in the Bible it says, and the gold was good. Funny enough, in the Bible it says the food was good. But surely the Almighty God would have known that, wouldn't he? Thank you, History and Coins. But anyway, yes, so they came here searching for gold to sprinkle in their atmosphere, because their atmosphere was dwindling, so that they had issues with their atmosphere. Back then, it was 445,000 years ago, give or take 1,000 years. And they came here and they set up a base in a place called Eridu, which we do have evidence that that's the first place ever on this planet that has any kind of... So funny how mainstreams backed that up. Any kind of structures or anything like that. The oldest place. And they mined for gold in the Persian Gulf. But it wasn't enough, and then they come up with the idea of hunting around. They found Africa had gold, which is why we've got ancient gold mines, funny enough, that no one can really work out why we've got ancient gold mines. And bearing in mind, we're talking, hundreds of thousands of years ago, ancient gold mines. So anyway, the Anunnaki start mining in the... So they look like us. We're in their image, by the way. You'll know them by the image of God, blue eyes, blonde hair, white skin. Well, that's certainly Enki anyway. His son may have had red hair. So Enki, who was a prince, mines for gold, or gets what they call the children of God. You'll know them as the fallen angels later on, and they start mining for 6 months of their time. Our time, it was thousands of years, but for them, because their planet has a different orbit to us. And after 6 months, they complain. And Enki, who was classed as a fashioner, very intelligent Anunnaki, comes up with the idea of modifying the Neanderthal that's already here on Earth to create a new species to do the work for them, because Neanderthals not smart enough to be told what to do. But if they add their own essence, DNA, to Neanderthal, they might be able to make something a little bit smarter, which they did, which you'll know these people as the African people over in Africa, because they put them to work in Africa. And these were the first Homo sapiens. And so those Homo sapiens got to work, didn't complain. 200,000 years later, the descendants of those Homo sapiens, Enki, the same Enki, because he lived for a long time because of their lifespan, which is why we know them as gods, because their race name's gods, and they were classed as immortal. They called us mortal, believe it or not. Enki bred with some of those Homo sapiens to create, to end up with Adam and Eve, which was the first Homo sapiens, smart ones. And so now you kind of get an idea who the Anunnaki is. If you're interested in the evidence of all of this, and I mean absolute 100% evidence, just go to my website, scroll down on the homepage to where it says click here. So you can get to my website from my profile, outruehistory.co.uk. Click where it says click here, sit back. It'll take you to YouTube. Sit back, watch that and go, wow, I have no idea that amount of evidence is out there. And then once you've watched that, go back to my website and watch the Norse gods, the Greek gods, and you'll see they're all the same. Scrolling down, Tom has wrote, hey, hi Tom, nice of you to join. Saint has wrote, Anunnaki, as I just looked it up, it seems as if they are mythological gods. Yeah, so the reason why they're called mythological gods, bearing in mind the Bible is one book, that's it. We've got millions of tablets, millions of papyrus, tens of thousands of carvings of the Anunnaki, buildings that belong to them before anything in the Bible. But the Bible's not a myth, but the Anunnaki is. So what you'll realize is when they put the word myth, it means it's true. They don't want it to be true, but it's true because they know that we come from an alien race that tells us that we're in their image, in their likeness. So unfortunately, it's not a mythological gods. It's flesh and blood. And that's why I hate mainstream. They put the word myth in it and people, numpties, believe it. I mean, let's be honest, in this day and age now, when mainstream tell you to do something, stick it in your arm, get some free fries. I hope people are smart enough now to just say, whatever mainstream says, I'm going to do my own research. I hope people are like that now. Saint Tigers wrote History and Coins. They are angels. They are supernatural beings. And what content is he referring? Oh, I think we might have a numpty here. Saint Tiger, please don't be a numpty. Please don't believe mainstream. You know mainstream called Troy, the city of Troy, a myth. Oh, we found it. Oh well, it's not a myth anymore. Please don't be a numpty. Please. I'm begging you. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you very much for the rose. A rose by any other name does smell so sweet. I don't know the rest of it. I was just making that up. I heard something similar. Anyway, so yeah, Saint Tiger, just do me a favour. Instead of coming back and saying mainstream said this, I could list you billions of things that mainstream's said that's completely wrong. Just go to my website. Please don't be a numpty and say no, I'm not bothering. Go to my website, scroll down on the homepage to where it says click here. Do that, watch that, then come back and chat. Otherwise, you've got one side that they want you to believe. But I'm hoping you're smart enough to know the difference. History and Coins has actually just said exactly the same thing. Just check his website. Just to let you know, Saint Tiger, the reason why I'm on 30 people is because TikTok limit me. Go watch anyone else that waffles on about the same subject. They're not limited. There's a difference. I show evidence, I tell evidence, I give evidence. Kevin's wrote, your lives are more mind expanding after a few drinks. I have evidence. Very good, Kev. I didn't know Coca-Cola could do that to you, but hey, whatever. JT's wrote, perhaps the tablets of destiny held the key to how gravity actually works, plus the key to turn it off. See, the thing is, one of the tablets does say that Anzu said that it'll make the stars disappear. I do need to do a deep dive on it. I hear what you're saying; it's interesting, but why can't they recreate that? Why is it only one of that they're worried about losing? So I need to do a very, very serious dive on that one. So yeah, it's a fair point, JT, but I can't understand why they wouldn't have recreated it so that it's not just a one-off. JT's wrote, what if the key to turning off gravity was to activate all the pyramids? Well, I don't know if you've seen my... yeah, I hear where you're going with that. So you've probably seen my documentary, haven't you, on why the Great Pyramids were built. I see where you're going with that. If I think what you're saying is what I think you're saying, then top of the class gold star for that. If I think what you're saying is correct. So basically, to spoil why the pyramids were built, they were built and put around the planet for weather manipulation. Basically, they needed to warm the planet up quickly, and that's exactly what happened. We've got the evidence of that. So anyway, long story short, go watch if you haven't seen my documentary on the pyramids, go watch that. But what JT's saying is, what if the tablets of destiny were like a key to the pyramids turning on and off, in which case they're not needed no more, because obviously they did raise the temperature, as mainstream will tell you. So what JT's saying is, what if this tablet of destiny was like the remote for these pyramids? I mean, it's an interesting thought, because I didn't think about, I assumed that they went round and set them all up and got it working and then moved on to the next one. But what if they set it up and then used one device to switch them all on at the same time? Because there were locking blocks, which you guys probably know, and they probably had those locking blocks maybe connected to a device that's holding it, and then as soon as they press a button around the world, all those locking blocks fell down, and then the chemicals that created the light that goes up into the sky, that created the plasma, blah blah blah, which changed the planet's temperature. Yeah, I love the idea of that, JT. I mean, it's I can't say it because we don't have the evidence, but I absolutely love the idea of that. So someone's been thinking outside the box. Brilliant. Well done, JT. Excellent. Love that. What a live chat we've had tonight. Hey, there's been some brilliant questions tonight. History and coins, right? Or am I still asleep? You hear me in your bloody sleep, do you? I feel sorry for you. JT is right. My mistake. I thought Nana was female. I need to watch more Patreon. Do you know what? It took me so long to get Nana out of my head as a female. Honestly, I kid you not. So, you're in the same boat as I was. It's just because it sounds like a feminine name. Yeah, I did the same. I used to like, every time I read it, I was like, or heard it or anything. I was like, yeah, that's like, that's the wife of, and I kept like, no, turns out it's not. Yeah, it got me as well. Scrolling down, we're getting to the end. Nicole's wrote, what do you think of the Anunnaki did to settle arguments? Severe cases, they had the 7 judges. These were elders, so you'll know them in the Bible as the elders, which is really weird because obviously God's the oldest known thing on this in the universe, then how the hell did God have elders? But no one talks about that in the Bible, do they? Shh. Yeah, so they had 7 elders that would settle disputes. They did it on Nibiru and they did it here on Earth. Minor disputes. I mean, obviously, most of the tablets that talk about the Anunnaki is talking about Enlil, Enki. The sort of the great, what they call the greater gods. So I can only tell you about the greater gods, not just some other Anunnaki that had an issue with someone else. They so obviously if it was a serious thing, then they would wrestle naked to get the outcome. If it was just a small issue, I'm just trying to rattle my brains here to think. Like for example, Nimna cursed Enki at one point and cursed Ninurta, and then eventually had to reverse the curse. So that's sort of one thing that they had an issue with. Obviously, Marduk had issues, and they allowed him to get away with so much before eventually banishing him and stuff, and trying to kill him. Just trying to think of all the other things that people's done. I mean, Nurgle, which is also known as Era, when he went a bit mental and started blowing up people from the air. Funny that how an ancient tablet can be telling us that he's gone around with these weapons, destroying cities from the air. Funny that how they come up with that fake idea. Obviously, it's true. They basically allowed him to do it and hoped that he would stop. So it does seem that they would just sort of bicker, really, especially Enki and Enlil. Like after the Great Flood, when Enlil found out that there was still a human Noah and his family, and Enki basically said it was me. I told his, told his building which he was in, so he heard it. I told him, and these are my people, and I don't want them to die and stuff. So it's mainly a bit of bickering, really, except for Ereshkigal when she killed her sister, who was mostly dead, but obviously didn't kill her because she came back to life eventually. But yeah, so mostly bickering, really. From what I've read, I don't recall anyone sort of having a good old fisticuffs and lightsaber fights and chopping someone in half or anything like that. It was mostly bickering. JT is right. Speaking of food being good, have you ever discovered what mana was? Yeah, so in my Bible rewritten book, which I was working on this morning before I had to go to my daughter's, I was up to that bit again, so I'm having to reread it just to make sure it's all fine. So I'm not going to spoil it. I'm going to leave it for the book because, as you know, I put the chapters out on Patreon anyway. So yeah, I believe I've worked out what it was. I might be wrong, but it's basically if you look, for example, when the Israelites was crossing, was it the Israelite? I can't remember the name of them. Crossing the Red Sea with Moses, and then they were stuck out in the middle of nowhere, the Exodus, and they had there was food manna given for a certain amount of days, and you have to remember that on the 7th day, this is why my book's amazing, my new book that ain't out yet. On the 7th, don't forget, on the 7th day, no one did anything, no work, so there was no way that they was going to give the manna on the 7th day, the Anunnaki, so they had to give them enough to last until the 8th day, which would have been back round as we know as a Monday. So I've covered that, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to leave it in my book because otherwise no one will buy my book. So yes, I have looked at it. Yes. I'm sorry. I know it feels bad, doesn't it? I'm not telling you, but History and Coins wrote Grower was tapping and it sent a request. Love it. Sorry, I don't really look at that. And normally I just sort of hope that someone will say, "Can I come up?" I never even looked down there. JT has wrote, That's what happens when you rely on corporate search engines, mythological." Yeah, thank you, JT. Obviously, hopefully that person has learnt now that um, what's a myth for them isn't actually a myth. Yeah, hopefully he's learnt. Bella's wrote, "Good to see you, wise one. It's been a while." Oh, thank you. I'm guessing that's me. Thank you very much, Bella. Thank you. JT's wrote, "Yes, loved the pyramid documentary." Oh, thank you. Thank you, JT. It's very nice of you to say. There's some good ones coming out. I'm losing track of what's due, but yeah, there's some good ones still coming. JT's wrote, "Archie History needs to create a think tank." With your amazing point earlier, yes, I have to say that was outside of the box and really clever. So yeah, and there's some excellent people on here that ask some excellent questions. So one day we might need to do that. We'll have a good chat ourselves. Maybe I should write down. Maybe we should just have a private chat. And everyone come up and all have a chat on things that I don't know or haven't solved or couldn't work out yet. And we will have a spitball with the ideas. Saves me doing deep research. Hopefully, one of you guys will figure it out. Save me a month's work. D-Boys wrote, "What if Dyson Sphere, everything built around it, and that's the power collector? Space junk in Dyson Sphere we call Earth." I'm not obviously. I don't think we're in a Dyson Sphere, obviously, because we wouldn't, technically, unless it was a glass one, we wouldn't see the other planets and stars, unless you're saying that the other planets and stars are inside the Dyson Sphere, in which case it's absolutely huge. Um, uh, um, so I'm not quite sure. Do you mean the whole universe is a Dyson Sphere, or do you mean we're inside a Dyson Sphere? I don't think we're inside a Dyson Sphere. Obviously, the firmament was the asteroid belt. If you're new to me and you want to see the evidence, that just go to my website. Or read my. I've got a couple of books called Almighty God or Anunnaki Gods, and I go through all the mentions of where they, in ancient times, where they mentioned the hammer bracelet. Sometimes they called it the hammer something. Sometimes they called it the bracelet, the gold bracelet, or something like that. But yeah, that's why it ends up being called the hammer bracelet. Scrolling down, D-Boys wrote, "Was sacrifice a reason to do testing DNA?" I'm guessing you're talking about when they slain one of their own to create. They slain one of their own for his. I can't remember what the exact words are. Something possibly like for his blood and intelligence, if I'm not mistaken, was the exact words in the Art Triasis. But then it does go. Someone mentioned before that it does go on to say about the ghost, which is really interesting because I said the only reason why they would have slain someone is for the orb inside the head, because everything else they could have, they clearly had the skills to manipulate DNA and splice animals together, which is why we get those mythological real creatures in ancient times. So I can only say that they slain someone for the orb and stuck that inside Adam, possibly. I don't know. There's no other reason. Everything else, in order to create a person, you don't need to kill someone. You could, if you needed the blood, you could take the blood. You don't have to kill another Anunnaki, which they did. They literally did. I think they chopped off his head, if I remember reading it somewhere. So yeah, interesting. D-Boys wrote, "Or food giants." That was carrying on for sacrifice. Well, when you say giants, I'm guessing you mean the offspring of the Anunnaki or Ajiji and humans. Um, Technically, it depends on how big the giants were. In the Book of Giants and stuff, they sort of ate everything, so that you really wouldn't need food. It would just be more of a run away, otherwise you'd be picked up and eaten. JT's right. I had a feeling manna would be in the OTH Bible. Yeah, yeah, a lot of stuff's in that. More than I thought I'd be writing when I first thought about doing the OTH Bible. Thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, when I first thought about rewriting it properly so that people understands what it's actually referring to, I thought it would probably be the Old Testament. I didn't think I'd go. I certainly can't go deep into the Jesus sections because obviously there's nothing to double check. I do cover little bits of it, believe it or not. Obviously because of Marduk being Jesus' father, but there's a lot more than I thought would be in it. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff in there. Hopefully you guys will like it. Jazz wrote, the Red Sea is the Mississippi River. So the Mississippi River is in America, whereas the Red Sea isn't. The Red Sea is a sea, and the river is a river. So I'm not sure if you're referring to, for example, when the Nile changed colour to red. I don't know if that's what you're referring to. And that was basically because of alkali. So if you read the Atrahasis tablet, you can go read it online. You'll see that what they done, what Enlil done was something. I actually thought it was in. I'm going to put my hands up here. I was wrong. So I actually thought that the Enlil at that point was in Israel when he did the things that ended up becoming the 10 plagues of Egypt. He wasn't. He was in Nippur. My bad, because I didn't research. I knew he did have a place in Israel, and so I just assumed that was where he was at that moment in time. That was me being stupid. I admit. I hate being wrong, but no, he was in Nippur at that point. For the 10 plagues of Egypt. And so what he done was he blocked the waterways. Now, I thought it was somewhere in Israel, but it was actually the Euphrates and the Tigris. And of course, then the next biggest waterway was the Nile. So that's why the frogs and everything all went over there, and the locusts and whatnot. So yeah, and they did set off this disease as well. And they also did other stuff where the ground and the waters become alkaline, which says it in the Atrahasis, and so that's when you end up with different color water in the Nile, which people thought was blood. So it's all there. It's all in my new book. But you can research it yourself if you're interested. But it's there if you want to read it. D-Boy's right. I missed responding on ageless and kingship after flood. I didn't read anything on that. Sorry, maybe it got removed. That's probably why I didn't respond. I didn't, or if I did, I might have sidetracked and forgot that I read it. Sorry. I apologise if I did read it and didn't answer it. Sorry. I don't recall it, but I'm tired now. I've been doing this for a few hours. JT, I can't believe I don't need the toilet. JT's wrote, I need a hardback special edition of that. Oh, bless. It's only at the moment, unless I add anything else to it. I've got to go back. I'm going back through it as I speak. It's about 208 pages, so it's not a huge book, but it's not like the Bible, because obviously I can't do all of the whole Bible, because obviously there's bits that just means nothing to anyone really that I can double check or anything. So I was hoping to get it to about 300 pages. So we'll see. But yes, hardback. I don't know if anyone would want a hardback. I don't know. Oh, bless. Thank you for even thinking of that. D-Boys wrote, I would. I'm guessing that's the book. Oh, thank you, guys. JT's right. When someone says Dyson, I think of the vacuum. Yeah, I know. I know. I have to get that out of my head as well. And then the next thought is Star Trek with the episode with the Dyson sphere. Deep Boys wrote, I was meaning megalith, and then wrote for first soul. I was meaning megalith for first soul. I'm not sure what that's now referring to. I'm slightly behind on what I was talking about, so I apologise, and I'm also slightly tired. Nicole's wrote, thank you for the live altruistry and now good night all. Oh, thank you, Nicole, for even taking the time to listen to me. History and Coins wrote, I'm off to I've got a headache, so starting. That's me. I know. You don't have to tell me. D-Boys wrote, so after the Flood King should ascended again, but ages. Oh, I think I might have read it, but I might have digressed. But ages were less than time. They seem to be been around a lot. So yeah, I have done a video on the King's List if you're interested. Basically, it starts with the Anunnaki, and then it goes on to the demigods, and then eventually to humans. So you can sort of tell by basically the time span of the reigns of the kings. It's one's in the tens of thousands, and possibly 100,000 in one case. Years of reign, and then when you get all the way down after the flood, you get like 30 years. Yeah, right. Except for Gilgamesh, who was obviously a demigod and was a king. So his reign was a lot longer, but of course, mainstream will say he wasn't real because of the time length, or oh, that's fake. That's all fake, except for the bits where we want it to be real. I mean, even Dan McLaren turns around and says that the ages in the Bible are wrong. They're just made up. Well, then Jesus is made up. Don't be picking and choosing. I hate that. So the ages in the Bible, in other words, how long someone lives for, long periods, is all made up, and yet we've got the King's List to back that up. We've got other tablets to back that up from the Anunnaki, how long they lived for. So he picks and chooses what he wants from the Bible. I hate that. That's fucking disgusting. Sorry, I just find that disgusting. I used to like him, but when you pick and choose what you want to say is real, with no evidence to support it one way or another, from his point of view, obviously we've got more evidence supporting that there was people that had longer lives back then. Yeah, I mean, even his freaking precious Bible turns around and says that God limited us to 120 years as well. So and we've got the tablets that also back that up. The Atrahasis in there. So I don't know. D-Boys wrote, less is to do with the environment change. I'm not sure what that less is. Oh, sorry, you carried on. Sorry. So after the Flood Kingship, they seem to have been around a lot less. Is it to do with the environment change? No, it was literally they really didn't deal with us. They had their little buildings and they had their spaceships in orbit, and they just let the angels, as you all know them, go and sort out everything and deal with it. So yeah, no, they never really dealt with us in the first place if they could help it. History and Coins wrote, no, it's my new hearing aid. I'm still getting used to them. Oh, that's a great excuse. It's me, isn't it, putting you to sleep? But thank you. Okay, so I've caught up, and I'm going to love you guys and leave you. If you've never listened to me before, just click on my profile, go to my website, outrohistory.co.uk, and knock yourself out with time travel, Bigfoot, aliens, you name it. There's something there for everyone. But if you're new to the Anunnaki and want evidence that they were real, go on the homepage, scroll to where it says click here. That'll take you to YouTube. Sit back, watch that, and then everything else you watch after that, you'll know. Thank you very much to the moderators. I'm sorry it's been a long one. Thank you to everyone that's listened, and thank you for some amazing questions today. And I appreciate you guys all. And a little bit more for the moderators, because the poor people have to listen to me over. They don't have to, but they do. Bless them. So I totally appreciate you guys. But thank you very much, and I'm signing off. And I will let everyone know when the book's done. And I enjoyed tonight. Thank you very much, guys. Take care, everybody. Bye. Bye.